Oh, good. I forgot to put the Pistons news in the run sheet. Be ready in 20. I got like 75% done the deep dive, and then the Pistons news broke. And everything became worthless.
Sounds about right.
Well, there already wasn't a lot of value. I mean, I'm talking about Patrick Williams and Denzel Valentine. Got a new chair, by the way, so if you need me to adjust, let me know. Yeah? All right, let me get taller for you. How's that? Word? Is it? Did you put all the game totals and everything in? No. No, like I didn't adjust them yet. I mean, I'm sure they're close enough. But I'm changing them real quick now. So if you want to do it on the fly, we're good. I'm assuming the only one that moved much at all, like significant, is the Detroit game, yeah. And it probably didn't even move that much because they're already so bad.
Yeah.
Looking out at the bay, watching explosions.
Yeah.
What was that? What was the cause of that?
I haven't seen. It was like a sugar silo at the Domino refinery.
Only in Baltimore, huh? One of their COVID vaccine facilities just got shut down in Baltimore too.
Yeah, saw that.
Apparently they just weren't cleaning stuff. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Jock Market. I am Dave Loughran. On the Twitters at Lafayette_D, LOUGHY_D. Joined by Adam Scherer at ShipMyMoney DFS, here to take the next hour to break down this 6-game slate. Now, we actually had this scheduled for 5:30. It's a bit of a mix-up, but we're good to go now. Everything should be good. If you're trickling in late, understandably so, because, well, no one expected it to start at this point. But just a word of advice going forward. If there's 7 p.m. games, we're definitely not starting at 5:30. Adam, what's going on, bro?
Not much. Another Pistons slate.
That's all you have, huh?
That's all I got.
All right. So anyway, yeah. Have you seen the camera quality? No, you haven't, because you've never pulled.
What do you think?
Using VMix now, it looks good, man. Teeth look even whiter. Your hat looks even more wrinkled. We're in business.
Hat looks dirtier.
Yeah, hat looks dirtier. We're happy to have you guys with us. Maybe I should hold this off until we get a few more, but hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet, and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to join the channel, I see Marcus Walker already did. What's up, brother? Welcome to the team. We got down there some amazing perks, really badges and emojis. It's like $2.99. It's pretty cool. And I'm sure you've noticed, Adam, but we have an Adam emoji now. We have a Josh mustache emoji. We got a Spags emoji. And I'll give you this. EMAC 2024 emoji is coming. So we're in business.
Sorry, I was checking my spot in line for the backdrop.
All right, so talk to me about this slate. First things first, you've got 6 games. You've got the Detroit Pistons ruling out ultimately the entire team. You're going to see probably 30-plus minutes from guys like Tyler Cook again, and it's going to get ugly. But the prices, because they've been doing this so often lately, aren't exactly that low. So we'll break all of that down. You have Luka on this slate. You have Davis returning for like 15 minutes max in the event that he returns, and Frank Vogel gives him the 15 minutes that he said. You have Giannis, who's questionable but pretty likely to play. Embiid playing the second of a back-to-back. All of this crazy stuff and a lot of moving parts. Jalen Brown doubtful, so you got Tatum as another high-priced option. Value was really ugly in the day. Did the Pistons news open it up enough for us to look at this slate differently?
Sort of, but like you said, their value as far as like now they're underpriced because half the team is out, but they're not value. Like we're not getting a whole lot of guys there at, 3,500 or something like that. So it makes it kind of weird because, it makes it so that there are value plays, there are underpriced guys, but it's not going to be quite as stars and scrubby as like last night, for example. The Sixers certainly have the potential to mess that up a little bit, depending on who is in or out for them. But it should be, I think, just naturally a little bit more balanced slate, just as far as what's given to us. You have pay up options, but not quite to the extent that you did last night either. You don't have Russ and Steph playing against each other. You don't have Jokic on the slate, but still, 3 guys to pay up for really, plus, I guess Zion and Tatum, but specifically Giannis, Luka, Embiid. And, some cheap plays, like you can still build lineups to get to those guys relatively easily, but it's just not going to be quite as wide open a slate, I don't think, as it was last night, for example.
Did you see that Embiid full court shot?
Yeah, that was nuts.
Did you see the slow-mo of it? Like it was in and out.
Yeah. It was like halfway down.
It was unbelievable. And the strength that you need to launch that shot was insane. It was a really great game.
Yeah, he was off the wrong foot too.
Yeah, wrong foot. Just really, really nutty. Did you get a pack, by the way?
No, 23,000. So just missed out for the second time in a row.
I'm 31,000. That sucks. I didn't expect to anyway. We got basketball to talk about, so let's dive straight into this one. Only 6 games, but you and I can, fill up an hour pretty quickly. Phoenix and Boston, kicking it off with the Phoenix Suns. Normally the Jay Crowder, who is out today after only playing 13 minutes, sustaining that knee injury in the first half, would not be a big deal. But it is kind of a big deal today. They're 1.5-point favorites. This should be a competitive game against the Celtics, who have won 8 of their last 10, 221 total, which, believe it or not, is one of the highest marks on the slate. Dario Saric is questionable too. So looking at the Suns today, I think just given that there's a dearth of value, we have to be talking about guys like Cam Johnson, who played 30 minutes last night. Saric, if he plays, could get some additional run. We don't really like the Suns most days because we've both said they're usually the most accurately priced team on DraftKings every single day that they're on the slate. But Cam Johnson at almost minimum salary feels like a decent enough value as a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy, having Jay Crowder off the floor tonight.
Yeah, it's just one of these spots where, right now with the value that we have, he's naturally going to end up in lineups just because he is cheap. I assume he's going to start after starting the second half yesterday. Played 17 minutes in the second half, 30 minutes total. If you expect 30 to 32 minutes from him at 3,500, he's just going to project as one of the best point per dollar values. He's not the most exciting guy. He has started 5 games this year with both of Devin Booker and Chris Paul active. He's only averaged 0.63 DraftKings points per minute. But even if you project him for that, if you assume he's getting those 30 to 32 minutes, that gives you like around 20 fantasy points and, just a spot where you can save some money and it opens up some other stuff in your lineup. So Johnson, I think, assuming he's in the starting lineup, ends up looking like, at least as of right now, one of the better point per dollar values. And then you mentioned Dario Saric being questionable. He's someone that potentially could pick up a couple of minutes alongside Ayton as well. He's only $3,200 on DraftKings with power forward eligibility. That's another spot where if he is active, you can look to him just, sort of as a cheap option where, there's a low floor, but he does have a decent ceiling if he's able to pick up a few extra minutes with Crowder out.
Matisse Thybulle locked up Devin Booker last night.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I saw enough tweets about it.
It's kind of crazy that the guy is such a miserable offensive player. I mean, it is so bad. But defensively, he'll lock down the best of players out there, and it'll make for a good conversation today in the event that maybe Giannis doesn't play. How does that affect Chris Middleton? But let's round out the Suns first. Is there anybody up here in Booker, in Chris Paul, in Ayton, in Bridges? Again, second of a back-to-back on the road for the Phoenix Suns. All of their starters played full minutes in a competitive game. That stands out to you tonight?
I think Mikal Bridges is sort of similar to Cam Johnson, just at a little bit different price point, but he's still a kind of guy that you're probably going to get a couple more minutes from him with Crowder out. You could see him play another 36 tonight. I think he played like 37 last night. He's cheap enough where that'll open up some stuff for you. Not the best fantasy producer. DeAndre Ayton, I think, is worth a mention. If Saric plays, I'm not that interested in Ayton. He's kind of just like a completely neutral guy for me. But if Saric sits, I think it's likely that you see Ayton play a few more minutes. You've seen him typically playing around 30 minutes a night, give or take. And part of that's been because Saric is, a decent backup that generally plays pretty well when he's out there. If you take him out and, you're giving Frank Kaminsky or whoever minutes, I think it's more likely that you see Ayton get back to like 34, 35 minutes.
Anything else for the Suns?
No.
How many people do you know with the same last name as you, or do you know of with the same last name as you?
0?
Well, I just found one.
Oh, yeah?
George Scherer in the YouTube chat says, lawfully, we'll work on that. How can I score an Awesemo hat, my brother? Oh, you talking about this right here? I'll tell you exactly how to score that hat because we're doing a giveaway today. I promise this is not Adam's brother setting me up for a sick-ass read. We're doing a giveaway, 5 $50 gift cards to our merch store, which we just opened up. It was open, but it was apparently impossible to find. We're doing that today on this very show. It's not hard to do it. You're going to have to do some Laffy trivia, though. Jordan and I thought of something. I'll ask the question later in the show, and hopefully, we'll win. Jordan, we'll pick 5 random winners, but they have to get one of the 4 answers right? They got to get all you have to do is get one of the 4 answers to the questions right. And Jordan's going to pick you, and then you email support@awesemo.com, and they'll get you set up with the $50 gift card. Grab a hat, grab a sweatshirt, whatever you want, but there's some really cool stuff. This hat in a bunch of different colors with snapback, fitted, whatever, dad hat, whatever you want, is all in the merch store. So, yeah, we'll have some fun with that later in the show. The Boston Celtics will very likely be without Jalen Brown today. And that's going to open things up for Kemba. I look at Kemba, and I know he hasn't had a great season this year, Adam, but there's too much about him that just makes sense today. He's got a 30% usage rate, 27% assist rate without Jalen Brown on the floor in 320 minutes. He's been playing monster minutes in close games. This game should be competitive, and you're not paying a premium for him right now. So $6,900 on FanDuel, $7,400 on DraftKings. Walker just feels like a pretty strong option to me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it doesn't feel great because Phoenix, we know, is a solid team defensively. Kemba, like you said, he has had his issues this year, but 30% usage rate, 27% assist percentage without Brown, and you assume his minutes are going to be staggered with Tatum, so he's going to get some time where the offense is solely running through him. And then, like you said, the playing time has been up as well. You're not really limited to the there was a point this year where it was like, oh, if I get 32 minutes from Kemba, I'm happy. That's not really the case anymore. If this game's competitive, you're probably seeing mid-30s at an increased, with increased productivity. So he's expensive enough. He can fail, but I don't think it's particularly likely. He projects, I think, as one of the better mid-range guard options with Brown out.
I think he does too. Now, Jason Tatum gets a little bit trickier, and here's why I say this. The value is at mostly other positions tonight, but all the top tier options, like the real good ones outside of Luka, are at power forward. You have Giannis, you have Zion, you have Tatum, all of them up there, 1, 2, 3, not in that specific order. Jason Tatum is 10-2 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's a little bit cheaper, so you can get a bit of a discount there, but that's generally the case anyway, where the pricing is not as sharp, 9,500. He's been good with Tatum off the floor. I took Robert Williams off the floor too, just from a rebounding perspective, given that he's a solid rebounder. Is it worth paying a premium for Tatum today over guys like Zion, over guys like Giannis on this slate?
I think so on FanDuel, especially. I think he looks good. You have a pretty nice difference in salary. You have a $1,500 price difference between Tatum and Giannis. He's even $300 less expensive than Zion. On DraftKings, I think it's a little bit more difficult because he's up at 10-2. Giannis only 10-8. And as good as Tatum has been, he's averaged 1.26 DraftKings points per minute. Oh, sorry, that's overall this season. He's been very good. I lost the page, but he's been very good without Brown on the floor. He has about a third, almost a 35% usage rate without him on the floor this year, but he still doesn't produce at the same level that Giannis does on average. So when you have them at almost the same price point, I think it's important to look to ownership. Pulling up ownership projections now, but that's a spot where at similar price points on DraftKings, I would lean towards whichever is lower owned between Tatum and Giannis. Right now, about 21% going to Tatum, 18% going to Giannis. So not a huge difference there. I would lean toward Giannis, though, if everything holds how it is.
The rest of Boston gets a little bit dicier. You got Tristan Thompson in the mix. He's probably going to get decent minutes with Robert Williams out. And then there's just not a lot. I do think we have to spend a little bit of time on Marcus Smart, though, because while he isn't the best per minute guy, he's still a 0.93 DraftKings points per minute producer. He can give you decent numbers. He averages 2 stocks per game. And, he has I don't want to say he has a high ceiling or floor, but in spots where it's close games, he's going to get 37, 36 minutes. Like, I think you could do worse than Marcus Smart tonight. What do you think about him against Phoenix?
Yeah, I think you could do worse. It's kind of just a guy where he'll land in some lineups, but it's not really someone that I'm like seeking out. Like Jason Tatum, if I get him in lineups, I feel good about it. I'm excited about it. Kemba, we think looks really good. Even Thompson, I'm not excited, but he's at a cheap price point where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Pay down there, pay up at other spots. If Smart ends up there, obviously I use an optimizer, so they all get in at the same time, but I know that like logically he was the last guy in. It's kind of just like, okay, I had the value, I had the stars, and then I had 6,600 left, and Marcus Smart gets in there because he projects reasonably well. But I would say that like between Tatum, Walker, Smart, and Thompson, Smart's the one that probably gets into my lineup the least, just because he doesn't fit that really cheap value option like Thompson does, and he doesn't fit the high projected points option like Tatum or even Kemba do.
Right. It's true. And when you're talking about Jason Tatum, I know it's hard sometimes to equate him or compare him to the top tier guys, but he has a couple of huge games over his last handful of starts. He has 68. He dropped to 68 with 44 and 10 2 games ago against Golden State. Bring it back to the 9th against Minnesota, played 45 minutes, had 53 points, 10 boards, and 76 fantasy points. So Tatum can get it done. And the truth is, if he's going to be, say, lower owned than Zion, I don't think Zion, even though he's got a very good matchup, is markedly better than Jason Tatum today. And the ownership doesn't say that he is. I'm not saying it does. We haven't had an update. We should get one soon. But like, I think Jason Tatum is right there with Zion, probably above him in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Tatum about 1.4 DraftKings points per minute without Jalen this year on the floor. And, so it's not a great matchup against Phoenix. Maybe he produces a little bit below that, but you're still getting a bunch of minutes. You're still getting a really high ceiling because, he's got a 22.5% assist percentage. He's got a 34.8% usage rate. On average, he's getting 1.4 fantasy points per minute, but with those kind of rates, you have the potential, like you were saying, for just some monster games. So I do think Tatum looks very good. I also would put him ahead of Zion.
Anything else for the Boston Celtics?
I don't think so. If you're playing like the huge field top heavy tournaments, mixing in a little bit of Jabari Parker at 3,400, I don't think is the craziest idea. We've only seen him play around 16 minutes with Boston, but who knows when that increases. And it's just one of those situations where like on a slate like this, where there's not a lot of very good cheap value, I don't mind rolling the dice on someone like Parker that produces at a high fantasy rate when he's out there. So more often than not, you're going to get 16 minutes. He's not going to do anything exciting, but he does at least give you that tournament winning upside.
Okay. Let's move it on to New Orleans and Orlando then. This will get a little bit interesting. The Zion Williamson play, we just talked about him a little bit. He's been a 1.44 DraftKings points per minute guy over the last month. You're certainly getting strong numbers from him, and his minutes are way up from where they've been in the past. The peripherals, they leave something to be desired at times. There's no doubt about that. Like over that same month, he has a 12% rebound rate. Now his assist rate's almost 24%, which is encouraging, but there are going to be games where if Zion's not scoring 35 points, he's going to leave you a little bit underwhelmed. And I think that's one thing to consider today, but he's sub 10K on DraftKings and on FanDuel, going up against an Orlando team whose front court, I mean, they should call out sick today, right? This front court should just call out sick. They all got the COVID because there's no way any of these guys are going to stop. Wendell Carter Jr. is going to have 6 fouls by halftime. I just don't see Chuma Okeke or anybody else being able to slow him down on a completely gutted Orlando team.
Yeah, neither do I. It's a really good spot for Zion, and it really just comes down to, he's a very good play, and there's just guys that look a little bit better around them. But at the same time, if you were to see ownership like really drop on Zion, then by all means play him in tournaments, because he can certainly beat Jason Tatum on any given slate a pretty high percentage of the time. He can even beat Giannis a decent percentage of the time. Over the last couple of months, over the last 2 months, he's played 14 games with Ingram and with Lonzo Ball active. He has a 31.1% usage rate, a 20.2% assist percentage, 12.5% rebounding percentage. All those numbers are up from his totals this season when both guys are active. So, I do believe you're seeing him take a step forward. You're seeing him contribute, not only getting more usage, but, contributing more in the way of peripherals than he was earlier in the year. And like you said, the playing time is up as well. So by all means, I think Zion's a very good play. It's just sort of, as you were saying when we talked about Tatum, there's a surprising number of very strong power forward options today.
Yeah, a lot of them. So outside of Zion, it gets a little weird, right? Because I think Brandon Ingram on FanDuel, you can make a decent argument for at a pretty shallow small forward position. But aside from that, I mean, are you finding any of these players to be worthwhile today? Are you getting to Najee Marshall on FanDuel? What are your thoughts on the rest of the Pels not named Zion Williamson?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty tough because the pricing is more or less where it should be. You mentioned Najee Marshall on FanDuel. He played a ton of minutes last game. You could roll the dice on him at 4,800, but I think I'm not confident he plays that many minutes again. I think you had some foul issues for someone. Eric Bledsoe only played 17 minutes in that game. It wasn't foul trouble, but he still only played 17 minutes. So you got Marshall playing a ton of minutes in the second half that he's not necessarily going to play. I think it's more likely you get 28 to 30 minutes from Marshall than the 35 he played last game. So it's just not a particularly appealing team to me outside of Zion.
Me neither. I don't see anything really worthwhile. This game outside of Zion doesn't offer all that much. I guess we can go to Orlando and get to a few of these guys to at least touch on because, well, I mean, there's 6 games. There's not a lot of games, and it's not one of the prettiest slates. But that's why we have tools that'll help you help you out in that process. It's always funny to me when people say, like, "Oh, what an ugly slate," or "all these injuries make it impossible." It's not really true, especially if you have the tools that are guiding you and making it easier for you to take all of that information and process it. And that's what we have over at Awesemo. So I don't see this being an issue whatsoever. It's actually a pretty interesting slate on a lot of levels. But for Orlando, I don't see a ton. Now, I do see Cole Anthony, and he's getting big minutes recently. He's played 30 plus in back-to-back games. And since he returned, he's actually been pretty good, Adam. Since he returned in early April, he's been a 1.12 DraftKings points per minute player. He leads the team in usage and in assists. So I can't really complain about the production we've gotten from Anthony in his rookie season.
Yeah, I really like Anthony here. He's been very productive this year when he's played without, the main pieces they had, Vooch, Aaron Gordon, Fournier. Now we still have Carter Williams out. We have Terence Ross out. He has about a 26% usage rate without Fournier, Gordon, or Vooch on the floor this year. His assist percentage is up around 30%, and you're getting 32 to 34 minutes from him in competitive games. So I think that Anthony, even with the price tag going up a little bit, I still think he looks like a pretty solid option. 6,400 on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. I don't have any issue with either of those salaries. He's the one that stands out the most, but you still can also look to guys like Dwayne Bacon at 4,600 who should play another 30 to 32 minutes. You can still look to a Wendell Carter, or even in tournaments in particular, Mo Bamba, playing 20 minutes behind them and producing at a high rate when he's out there. You're getting about 40, you're getting 48 minutes from Carter and from Bamba. So obviously don't play them together, but either of those guys give you a reasonable ceiling here. Chuma Okeke's actually played pretty well also. He's at a price point that I don't really love, but certainly someone that you can look to in tournaments. Cole Anthony, easily the one that stands out the most to me though.
What about Terence Ross, who, in my opinion, right?
He's out.
Oh, was he confirmed out? Okay,
Yeah,
that's my fault. You're right. He got confirmed out. What, like right
as the show was starting?
Right as the show started. Yeah, and Giannis is active, so we have that as well. Given that Terence Ross is also out now, it has to at least. Does it bring anyone else into the picture? Is James Ennis out? Yeah, he is out.
Yes.
Okay, so he's out as well. So that means you have no Ross, you have no Porter, you have no Ennis, and Michael Carter-Williams with an extended absence as well. You just broke down a few of these guys, but is there anyone else that really benefits from those guys being out?
Not beyond what we've seen recently, because Orlando's played several games without them recently. So I'm expecting again that you get 32 to 34 minutes from Okeke, same from Bacon, same from Anthony. Gary Harris probably plays around 28. So they benefit in the sense of they're playing more minutes than they would if those guys were in, but they don't benefit beyond what we've seen from them recently.
Then let's move it on here. We got Philly and Milwaukee on the schedule. Philly, second of a back-to-back as well. Tough 3-point loss without Simmons and Harris last night to the Suns. Simmons is legitimately questionable with a non-COVID related illness. Tobias Harris also questionable. He's been out a handful of games, hasn't played in over a week. And Seth Curry, who was out for rest, still hasn't been ruled in. I'm assuming he plays. But Joel Embiid said after yesterday's game that he intends on playing. He posted yet another huge game, Adam, 38 and 17, 68 DraftKings points across 33 minutes. It's just been an onslaught of huge performances from Embiid since he returned from the injury. If Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris sit again today, are you willing to roll the dice on Embiid? Remember, we have Giannis, you have Zion, you have Tatum with very, very likely to be no Jalen Brown. You have Luka Doncic. You have a lot of top tier players. Joel Embiid's been an awesome low-owned pivot recently because when he gets those minutes, he crushes. But do you worry about the second of a back-to-back today against the Bucks being 8-point dogs?
Not too much. Like it's obviously a concern. I would rather it not be the second half of a back-to-back, but I'm not really expecting anything different from Embiid. I'm expecting him to get, 32, 33 minutes. I'm expecting him to produce at a high rate. And if Simmons and or Harris are out, he'll look like one of the best pay up options again, because, while it is a good Milwaukee defense, it's also a fast paced Milwaukee team. And we know a ton of the offense is going to run through Embiid. So if Harris plays, if Simmons plays, you're talking about Embiid being around a 1.6 DraftKings points per minute guy, playing 32, 33 minutes. He would be a fine option, but it's if one of those guys or both of those guys sit, you see Embiid jump to like a 1.9 fantasy point per minute player. That would start to be really hard to ignore on this slate.
Yeah. Kevin S. Super Chats us, right? And I legit went and looked this guy's name up because you see, you got to go into the YouTube chat sometime. I promise you, it is well worth it, Adam. You need to experience that life, because he gives me a question: Cole Anthony and Dante DiVincenzo, or Zion and Loughran. Now, Loubricant. So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's French, lubricant. And then I look it up. I check to see if he's in the play. Who the fuck is this guy? Well, you got me for the first time in a minute. I didn't read it out loud, impromptu, but you got me. Nice. And I guess you changed the name up again. I mean, this dude is dedicated. So appreciate you, man. Thanks for that super chat too. All right. Let's get to the rest of Philly. And really, if Simmons and Harris do play, what does that do for Embiid to you?
It makes him still a good option, but just not nearly the priority that he would be if they're out. On the one hand, if they're out, it increases the chance that Milwaukee just runs away with this game, but it also just makes Embiid that much better of a fantasy producer, because we've seen, just how, he goes to about 1.85 to 1.9 fantasy points per minute. So it makes him look a lot better. If they're in, he's still fine. I'm still happy to roster Joel Embiid where I can, but it doesn't really put him too far ahead of the other pay up options, I don't think.
Laffy is the Ron Burgundy of Awesemo. That is not true at all. If Simmons and Harris play, is there any interest whatsoever here in either of them?
Not really. Like they're cheap enough now where they at least have a path to success. Like if Simmons goes out there and throws up, a 10-point triple double at 7,900 on DraftKings, that's going to be a decent outcome. Tobias Harris against a Milwaukee team that's going to force outside shooting is in a decent spot, but still, I just have a really hard time prioritizing them relative to, other options on this slate, even with it being a 6-game slate.
The rest of this team has been pretty tough to target lately. Like Milton's getting minutes. You can expect Matisse Thybulle to get considerable run in this game, especially against so many quality offensive players on the Bucks. In the event that the Sixers remain shorthanded, he's just not a good offensive player. But at almost minimum salary, right, on a slate devoid of good value, could we make an argument for Matisse Thybulle if the Sixers remain significantly shorthanded tonight and we can give him 31 to 36 minutes like he saw last night?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly, anytime someone's close to minimum salary and likely to play 30 plus minutes, you can make an argument for them just because being on the floor for that many minutes, it's relatively likely that they do well no matter who they are, for their salary. And then there's also just the added benefits. I know Alex has talked about it before. And so have I, but that getting guys around 3K, around the flat minimum, is just such an advantage for the rest of your lineup. Like it really does. When you start building your lineups out, you realize like how much it helps you get the highest upside guys than elsewhere. So you can always make an argument for it, especially a game like this where there's going to be plenty of guys for Matisse Thybulle to be out there defending. It's just, you have to keep in mind, this guy is probably not going to score points. He's out there to, get rebounds and steal the ball from people, maybe get a couple fast break dunks. But other than that, like you're not really hoping that you run into the game where like, Danny Green knocks down 8 3-pointers on 9 attempts. Like you're not getting that from Matisse Thybulle.
Right. So essentially outside of Thybulle, if they're still injured, there's not much you like here, even if that's the case, because Korkmaz's price has come up pretty considerably too. And he hasn't even been playing big minutes in the past couple.
Yeah, I mean, Korkmaz's price has come up. If all 3 questionable guys are out, then I do think you can look in the backcourt. Shake Milton yesterday disappointed a ton of people, and Tyrese Maxey played 31 and a half minutes off the bench. Milton only played 24. But if all of Harris, Simmons, and Curry were to be ruled out, then, just looking at yesterday, you're seeing that you got to combine 56 minutes for Tyrese Maxey and Shake Milton. These are both guys that produce at a pretty high level when they're on the floor. So it would make both of them look like, pretty decent values. You shouldn't expect 31 minutes again from Maxey, but even if he played something like 20 to 22 at 3,100, he's probably fine. If you get 26 to 30 from Milton, he's pretty unlikely to score 11 fantasy points again. So you could definitely look to either one of those guys if Curry, Simmons, and Harris are all out.
All right. On the Milwaukee side, you've got a healthy Giannis Antetokounmpo. There was no real reason to assume that he wasn't going to play, but he was listed as questionable, so we're good to go there. All of the price points on these guys, though, have been fitted for a Giannis-less Bucks team, and that makes it a little bit difficult outside of Giannis. So he's 10-8 on DraftKings. He's 11,000 on FanDuel, but then you start looking at Middleton, 83 on DraftKings, Holiday, 8,200. Those are pretty prohibitive price points against Philly. Even if Simmons and Harris don't play, you're still talking about Matisse Thybulle in the starting lineup, a quality Danny Green defender, Joel Embiid. I have trouble getting to anyone outside of Giannis here. Maybe you can sway me, but I don't know if you want to.
No, I mean, I do as well. Like if I had to point to anything else, Brook Lopez has been playing a lot of minutes and he's relatively inexpensive, but even that, when you talk about Lopez, he's not getting a lot of rebounds for a center. He's boxing out and letting other guys do it. He's, a good defender, but you don't really get fantasy points for that. So there's not much else here beyond Giannis for me. And even that, as good as Giannis is, I think it's a little tough to prioritize him, at least as far as like, he doesn't stand out head and shoulders to me above the other pay up options at power forward. I think he's a little bit better than Tatum. I think he's a little bit better than Zion, but he's also a little bit more expensive and they're getting similar ownership. So it kind of just ends up being a situation where like, yeah, I'm going to end up with one of those guys in most of my lineups, but I don't look at it like last night. I looked at it and was like, I really want Russ over Steph. I thought at their ownership, Luka was a better play than Steph, for example. Tonight, it's more so like, I don't feel particularly strongly about any one of these guys other than that the whole group is good.
Tobias Harris, probable. Ben Simmons, so let's just go back for 1 second. Ben Simmons out. Harris probable. Seth Curry probable. Furkan Korkmaz is now questionable.
So Seth Curry, the last time, what do we have? Simmons out like two games ago. Okay, so 2 games ago we had Curry was in with Simmons and Harris out. Curry played 35 minutes in that game. Milton only played 20 off the bench. That was the game where we had basically nobody except Thybulle off the bench play more than 25 minutes. So I think it makes everyone riskier. You could take some shots at Seth Curry, hope that you get 30 plus minutes from him. I think there's still a decent chance you're getting like mid 20s in minutes from Shake Milton, but it makes him kind of scary. Tobias Harris is, I think, okay in tournaments if he's not going to be limited. Like if you're going to get 34, 35 minutes from Harris, not that Simmons is a really high usage guy, but it still should get a couple more shots up for Harris, potentially a little bit more in the way of assists, a little bit more in the way of rebounding. Still not a priority for me, but I think Harris is kind of interesting with Simmons out.
So we got a $100 super chat from Neil Orfield, Millie Maker winner, Awesemo sub. You remember that? Huge win. Are you just seeing this now, Jordan? It says, just want to contribute to some concealer for Jordan's hickey. $100 to say that. I love it. Do we need a producer cam or what, though?
Yeah, that would have been so perfect the other day.
Oh, man. If we could just pop him up and have him like that.
Yeah, I'd seen it the day before. I looked at something and like did a double take. Like, what the hell is on Jordan?
That was more than a day. That looked like it was a fresh 5-minute hickey.
Yeah, it had been there at least 24 hours.
Wow. Okay. Jordan putting in that work. Zach Anderson with a super chat says, do you ever take into account a player's history at a particular stadium? For example, Booker scored 38 in 3 of his last 5 trips at Boston. Can't really quantify it as the problem. Yeah. What do you say, Adam?
I don't. The only time I ever sort of did was Ryan Anderson's home road splits like 4 or 5 years ago, which I'm sure anyone that's played DFS for a while remembers. But even that, it was like a home. It wasn't a specific stadium. It was a home road. I think Ryan Anderson might be colorblind and can't shoot in whatever stadium it was, whatever arena it was. But yeah, I mean, as far as like, I'm sure players do have certain backdrops that they prefer, certain arenas they prefer shooting in, but there's just no way to account for that in a way that, you know, can strip out all the noise of it's more likely he just has shot really well over his last few games against Boston.
There was another one too. Anthony Davis at home, the scorekeeper would record everything as a block.
Yeah. Anthony Davis blocks in New Orleans. I mean, and that's a thing in general, like not to the extent that we saw in New Orleans, but you do get some favorable home scorekeeping. But yeah, as far as like shooting goes, the only one I can remember actually thinking might be a thing was Ryan Anderson.
For sure. And yes, Josh, exactly. We need the Baba Booey cam. That's what we need. That'd be huge. You can cut to it whenever we want. Husto, thank you for the super chat as well. Let's dive back into this one. Remember, hit that thumbs up, guys, and stick around to the end of the show, not just because we got live before lock and probably a lot of news, but we're giving away 5 different $50 gift cards to the store. It's our way of saying thank you for showing up, checking out Awesemo shows all of the time. And we'd love to see you grab some of this. You got the hats, the sweatshirts, all that stuff. Got to answer some Lofty trivia. We'll do it at like 5:45, maybe 5:50. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but we'll make it happen. And then Jordan Klein's going to randomly pick people who actually get the questions right.
Wendell Carter Jr. questionable.
What's up?
Wendell Carter Jr. is now questionable.
Okay. What type of impact are we getting out of that?
I mean, if Mo Bamba plays, he's well over a fantasy point per minute guy that would probably play like 26 to 30 minutes.
Probably becomes pretty much a priority, right?
Yeah, like you would be looking to him and Isaiah Stewart pretty much just like locking down the center position.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we got ownership updated 6 minutes ago as well. Pretty much exactly what I expected to see. A lot of Detroit up there. Kobe White, Cameron Johnson. Yep, makes sense to me. Kemba Walker's up there for very good reason. Close out Milwaukee. Anything else you like here?
No, it's pretty much just Giannis.
All right, so Detroit. Let's get into the weeds, baby. You got the Detroit Pistons with – here we go. Got to catch my breath. No Jeremy Grant, no Mason Plumlee, no Dennis Smith Jr., no Wayne Ellington, no Rodney Magruder, and maybe no Hamidou Diallo. So the good thing, Adam, is outside of Sekou Doumbouya, who is back but was out on the game on the 19th, we actually have some pretty similar scenarios where we can look at what the rotations looked like. We can see what the rotations looked like. Usually when you have this many people out, it's kind of unprecedented, but they've done this so often in Detroit this year that we actually have some precedent for what it's going to appear to be. And Isaiah Stewart's got 50+ DraftKings points in 3 of his last 4, 40+ in 3 of his last 4. I think he's averaging over 1.5 fantasy points per minute over that stretch. You're going to get big minutes from Sadiq Bey. You're going to get big minutes from Josh Jackson. There's Cook as well, who got the start last time out. There's just so many moving parts here, but I think it might actually be easier than it looks.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Detroit at this point is you can just go back 2 games and see. because they're pretty much just resting their guys like every other day, it seems like. So,
Yep.
Isaiah Stewart, I don't think he continues producing 1.5 fantasy points per minute. He's played 3 games without Jeremy Grant this year. He's got a 27.5% rebounding percentage. I don't think that continues, and he's not a high usage guy, but he's still pretty inexpensive. You can expect 30 to 32 minutes barring foul trouble. He's still going to rebound at a high rate, just probably not 27.5%. And, he's going to give you over a fantasy point per minute. So he still looks very good. He's still a power forward on FanDuel too, for whatever reason. So it's even easier to get him into lineups there. Saddiq Bey is the favorite to lead the team in minutes again, should give you 35, 36 minutes, probably won't knock down 6 3-pointers again. And he's not a great fantasy point per minute guy, but he's still cheap enough where he just, fits in pretty nicely based on playing time. Josh Jackson gives you a high ceiling, 28.5% usage rate this year without any of Grant, Plumlee, Derrick Rose, or Blake Griffin on the floor. Should play 28 to 30 minutes here. He's a reasonable option for sure. Killian Hayes expected back in the lineup. He's actually been, as much as he has struggled overall this rookie season, he's actually been a productive player when he's played without, all these other pieces on the floor. He has an 18% usage rate, but a 34.1% assist percentage. He's averaged about a fantasy point per minute, and you should get 30 to 32 minutes from him. Diallo's interesting to me. The news on Diallo, I think affects Frank Jackson the most, probably, because we saw Frank Jackson play about 28 minutes last game, but with Sekou Doumbouya back, I think that you see Jackson take enough of a haircut where he's not really that interesting to me. But if Diallo were to be out, it opens up, another 20 minutes or so, and some of those would most likely go to Jackson. And obviously I know Jackson doesn't play the same position as Doumbouya, but Doumbouya getting more minutes moves Saddiq Bey up and moves Josh Jackson up. It has an effect on Frank Jackson. So I am paying attention to the Diallo news because I think it affects Frank Jackson.
Yeah, I think it does too. And if Diallo ends up sitting, you're just not going to have a lot of players you're not going to have that many options. So how many minutes do you give Isaiah Stewart here? Let's start with that, because Okafor, who was out a long time, will be active, but I think you could get another 32 from Stewart. And we've seen it recently.
Yeah, I have a 31-17 split between Stewart and Okafor. I feel pretty confident that without foul trouble or anything, you're getting somewhere between like 30-18 and 32-16.
And he's been dominant. He's really
he's been playing great.
Really well. I love, and I know you're the same way, we love players that can give you those huge rebound and block totals because they don't need to score a lot of points. Like when Moses Brown was getting the minutes, you knew he didn't need to give you 20 actual points.
Yeah, I mean, we've harped on it a lot recently, just talking about rebounds specifically, that, of course, everything goes into your projection and your median projection, but rebounding is just a more stable stat than other stuff is. And so when you get someone, on the one hand, it's not as exciting, when you look and like, would I rather Isaiah Stewart be a 25% usage guy with a 20% rebounding percentage? Of course. But even being, a 16 to 18% usage guy, when you have that 20+% rebounding percentage, it's just, you kind of have that floor built in with the rebounds, and then whatever other stats he gets just adds on to that. Whereas when you're a scoring dependent guy, like look at Steph Curry yesterday, he had a better day than normal in terms of rebounding and assists, but it was still just, he's not making his shots. He's not going to do a whole lot from a fantasy standpoint. So it just kind of solidifies that floor for you when guys rebound like Stewart's been able to.
James Johnson's confirmed out. Does that change your mind at all on someone like Najee Marshall?
I was assuming Johnson was out anyway.
Right. Yeah, I thought he was doubtful anyway, wasn't he? All right. Top options from Detroit. I know it's a tough question, but I want to make sure we cover everything on this one since it's such a wild circumstance.
Yeah. So I'm assuming Diallo plays for right now, and I'm assuming that you basically get a minute split between Tyler Cook and Sekou Doumbouya regardless of who starts. So keeping that in mind, Isaiah Stewart and Killian Hayes, I think, are the two that look the best for me at their salaries. But really, Stewart, Hayes, Josh Jackson, and Saddiq Bey, I think, are the top 4.
And if Diallo's out, you're saying you could even get a little Frank action sprinkled in the tournament, or Frank Jackson sprinkled in the tournaments as well.
Yeah, not something I would be super confident in, but we did see him play about 28 minutes last game. You only saw Saben Lee play 14 or 15. So I do think that, at least based on what it looked like in the last game, everyone was out. Frank Jackson probably ahead of Saben Lee.
Yeah, I think so too. I would assume that it would help Saben Lee's minutes, maybe get him up to like 25 too.
Well, and you've also typically been seeing Killian Hayes and Saben Lee split minutes, 48 minutes, and you're seeing Frank Jackson play alongside them. So I think Diallo has a pretty big impact on Frank Jackson.
No doubt about it. What about the Spurs? Not a whole lot to like here. I think DeRozan 79 on FanDuel is palatable. DeJounte Murray's a pretty decent player, but it's just one of those teams that's been healthy long enough that when every other team is dealing with significant injuries. You don't get to as much teams like the Spurs.
Yeah, you don't. It's sort of just, they'll land in some lineups because it's a pretty good matchup against a shorthanded Detroit team. And there are guys on the Spurs that produce at a high rate, like DeRozan. DeJounte Murray on DraftKings, I think, looks the most favorable to me. 7,200, that's really not a bad price tag. He's someone where if you're looking in that price range, Kemba Walker projects better. Like Kemba Walker's the better play, but that's not really a secret. Everybody knows that. So if it's a lineup where you need a contrarian piece, for example, DeJounte Murray gives you that same sort of ceiling that Kemba does, even though Kemba's going to outscore him more than half the time. So Murray, I think, looks okay there. You mentioned DeRozan's salary on FanDuel being pretty appealing. No issue getting to him. But overall, in terms of prioritization, the Spurs are pretty much a healthy team.
All right, 4 up, 2 to go. We got about 18 minutes, making good time here. Let's hit the Awesemo Hall of Fame, Jordan. We got anything new from today? I'm assuming we do. No, nothing? I had a bunch of screenshots come in yesterday. What? Oh, all right. Let's do it. Let's make this happen. For those of you wondering, maybe you're new to the channel, new to the show, if you use the Awesemo avatar by going to awesemo.com/avatar and take first through third in a tournament with 5,000 or more people, we'll give you a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Every single sport, everything, you name it, you got it. Everything on the site got $100 value. And that includes if you win the nickel, right, the 5-cent entry, you take top 3 in that, or even the quarter arcade, those are huge fields, sometimes upwards of 300,000. That counts just as much as a bigger entry into some of the bigger, large field tournaments with the 100K to first. It does not matter. This is the one I was looking for, Jordan. Yeah, Al gets it done. He said, got it done on the DK 4-point play. This is from yesterday. Thanks for all and there it goes. $3,000 win. CZAP, $50,000. This was huge. Look at that. 1 and 2. I love seeing this. This makes me happy. CZAP, 50 grand. Then JRS, 7, 8, 81, 15 Gs. 2 Awesemos. Then look all the way down at 8, $1,100. You got 1, 2, 3 in the top 8 Awesemo logos. Our boy DeColts, I'm going to show this one all week. $67,000 and then the $9,000 in the MMA contest. Use the promo code UFC261. It's good till Saturday. Get a half off an entire month, which includes 2 pay-per-views and all of the events in between them. But Steve Buzzard, he's the GOAT, putting up huge scores using our UFC tools, the same things we're offering at half off, $15 a month. There it is, Awesemo Hall of Fame. You guys want to check? You guys want to get up there? All you have to do is use the Awesemo avatar, right? I love being able to get these tweets each day rolling in, whether it's $50 win, $50,000 win, it doesn't matter. We'll showcase it. We'll put you up there. Proud of all the boys and ladies that are rocking the Awesemo avatar and winning that bread. But yeah, go to awesemo.com/join or /promos to get that UFC 261 promo. It's good till Saturday. And if you want to get all access to all of our tools and you don't think you're going to go and win with the Awesemo avatar, you want to jump in now, check it out. We got something for under $4 a week. All of the tools included if you want to go with the all access monthly, weekly, annual. We got something for everyone, no matter what your budget or style of play is. All the tools built by the #1 ranked DFS player in the world, used by the #1 ranked DFS player in the world, and managed by some of the best out there as well, including Steve and so many others. All right, let's go to Charlotte and Chicago. The Charlotte Hornets, 1-point dogs here, as a matter of fact, against the Chicago Bulls. They've got a pretty healthy team back outside of Hayward and LaMelo Ball and Malik Monk still out, but that's been the case. What are we doing with guys like Terry Rozier and Bridges and PJ Washington, who's come off the bench but played big minutes in a reserve role since returning?
Yeah, so with Graham being back, it takes a little bit away from Rozier, but you should still get a ton of minutes. Last game, you got another 38.9 minutes against the Knicks on, what was that, Tuesday? So, I'm still expecting you get similar run from Rozier. The usage rate comes down a little bit, but he's still going to play half of his minutes without Devontae Graham, give or take. So he's expensive. I don't think he's a priority, but I do think that he gives you a pretty high ceiling just based on how many minutes he's going to play and the fact that he's a high usage guy that can get hot from the field. Beyond that, there's not a ton that stands out here. Like, this team's gotten pretty expensive. You mentioned the playing time on PJ Washington, and on the one hand, we've gotten 35 and 34 minutes off the bench his last couple of games. the thing that concerns me, and it's something Josh showed me earlier because I hadn't seen it. So Vernon Carey, two games ago, he started, that was the game where he picked up 2 fouls on his first possession. PJ Washington played a bunch of minutes with Carey basically in foul trouble all game. Last game, Vernon Carey started, he played 3 minutes, didn't play the rest of the game. PJ Washington started the second half, ended up playing 35 minutes. My assumption was that PJ Washington was going to jump back in the starting lineup. Josh showed me the quote from James Borrego saying basically the opposite, that he needs to get Vernon Carey more minutes, that these next 15 games are important for the development of Vernon Carey. So I'm still not completely buying that. We know coaches lie all the time, and based on the rotation last game, it would make sense for Washington to be back in the starting lineup. If that's the case, I have interest in PJ Washington. But if Carey starts, I'm not saying that I think he plays enough to be a strong fantasy option, but if he starts, I think there's a good chance you're getting like 12, 14 minutes from Carey, which is enough to maybe knock PJ Washington down to like 30 minutes and make him a lot less interesting.
Do you think there are any priorities from Charlotte?
No.
No? Nope. What about Chicago and starting it off with Coby White? I think that's where we have to go here. I understand that he's not that good, and I actually thought he'd be better than he was, so it's a little bit disappointing for me. But in the 4 games that LaVine has missed, 4 consecutive games since entering the COVID protocol, White's played 30-plus minutes in all of them. He's averaging 1.1 DraftKings points per minute, 23% usage, 31% assist rate, sub 6K salary. These are all pretty decent numbers, and if he plays if it's a close game, I assume Billy Donovan gives him 33 to 35 minutes. So I know that he's going to be popular, but I think it's for good reason here. The only question would be Charlotte's playing super slow, and they actually have a pretty respectable defense. I just don't know how much that matters on a 6-gamer where every game has some wards.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that they're playing really slow, and that's, not great, but there's not really, there's no like Golden State Washington game on the slate where you look at and you're just like, yeah, there's going to be a million points scored here. It's just a matter of where do they come from. It's just a different slate. So that's less of a concern. And you've had him playing big minutes since joining the starting lineup. I kind of assumed that when Satoransky came back, you would see Coby White's playing time drop off, but that hasn't been the case. Even last game, in basically 3.5 quarters, Satoransky got up to 21 minutes, but you still got 30.5 from Coby White. Troy Brown, not playing again today either. So that's one other guy not in the backcourt. So yeah, I think that, even though, like you said, Coby White's not the best player, the matchup's not the best, he has still averaged 0.9 DraftKings points per minute without LaVine on the floor this year. He's been playing really well lately, and you've seen the assist numbers go up playing with Vooch. They've fit together really well. So at his price point, I think $5,500 Coby White is pretty clearly underpriced here.
All right. I do too. I don't really see anything that gets me away from him. What about Vooch at $8,800 on FanDuel, $10,000 on DraftKings? So really different price points, but playing without Zach LaVine, you have to at least think he has a high ceiling here.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think the price point is, a huge difference there. 8,800 on FanDuel leaves a lot of room for upside. On DraftKings, it's a lot more difficult, especially when you consider, we have Tatum, we have Zion, we have Giannis, we have Embiid without Simmons. So like there's a lot of guys in that price range that look really good. Whereas on FanDuel, 8,800 is going to be a lot easier to get to. So I do think Vooch is fine. I just think that there's a pretty big difference between the sites.
Man, you'd think I was multi-accounting like Ankur is with all of these I want Laffy's hat comments, but I'm not. And we're giving free ones away. So we should do it right now. Actually, we got to have to wait 1 minute. Let's close out Chicago, and then we'll do it because I want to at least have, some consistency here. Talk to me about the rest of the Bulls. Then we'll give out it's like $250 worth of credits to the store since we're launching it. We want you guys to have some free merch. Store.awesemo.com, or you can check it out at awesemo.com. Who else do you like on the Bulls?
So I'll follow it up with Vooch has played 5 games now without LaVine, 1.39 DraftKings points per minute, 30% usage, 20% assist percentage, 16.5% rebounding percentage. So, everything does look good for him there. It's just a matter of pricing. Beyond that, though, we did get 25 minutes from Denzel Valentine last game. He played a bit more in the second half than he did in the first half. But, I would expect that you're getting 22 to 24 minutes from him at almost min salary without Troy Brown. So I think that's a pretty interesting price point. You could look to Lauri Markkanen at 4,100, but at a $1,000 discount, I think Denzel Valentine's kind of an interesting value option there. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot here. Daniel Tice at 3,700. We had we've talked a couple of times now that he's not playing backup center behind Vooch, which I think does hurt him. But if you're going to get around 24 minutes from Tice at 3,700, there is still some value there. It's just that at center and not getting center minutes or center, not getting minutes at center on the Bulls, it makes him kind of difficult to trust.
All right, Jordan, are you ready for this? This is about to get wild. All right, here's the question. We're giving away 5 different $50 gift cards to the merch store. We got the hats, you got the Awesemo shirts, t-shirt, sweatshirts, all that good stuff. You can get whatever you want. Here's the question. And if you win, Jordan's going to pick you. And then you got to email us at support.awesemo or support@awesemo.com. Support@awesemo.com. Write it down. Keep it in your head, whatever you have to do. And of course you have to like this video first, or at least subscribe to the channel. Give us some love. So as you can see, I am a diehard Philly fan, 4 for 4, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, but it wasn't always that way. As a kid, I had a favorite team for all of those sports, and none of them were Philly teams. You got to get one of them right. Now, I'll give you a hint. I'm 34 years old, which means that one of those teams might not even be around anymore. Maybe it was a baseball team. I don't know. Maybe it was basketball, football, hockey. You got to get one of the 4 right. Of the 4 teams that I used to be a fan of, none of them Philly teams, basketball, football, baseball, and hockey. Get one of them right, Jordan. You got the list, and we'll start giving them out. We'll let you know who wins at the end of the show. Get ready. I knew this shit was going to start flying. All right. Dude, those hoodies are nice, man. Those hoodies are real nice. You want to talk about the Lakers in Dallas and wrap this one up?
Yeah, may as well.
All right, let's make it happen. The LA Lakers are on the road against the Dallas Mavericks, sitting at 2.5-point dogs, getting Davis back, at least expected to get Davis back, but Vogel said he'd only play 15 minutes. 216 total. Is there anything at all from the Lakers that stands out to you?
Stands out, no. Davis being back, I mean, it's obviously going to hurt everyone for the 15 minutes or so that he is out there, but I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on the game because it is only expected to be 15 minutes, but you still have elevated pricing on like Andre Drummond, for example. So he's someone where, does he have a ceiling at that price tag? Sure. But he doesn't really project that well. Dennis Schroeder, I think, is still reasonable at 6,800 on DraftKings. I think I would look toward DeJounte Murray ahead of him though. If we're just talking, mid-range guys that are not Kemba Walker. DeJounte Murray, I think, looks a little bit better. But those two are at least like reasonably priced. I really have trouble, I think, getting to anything beyond those 2 guys.
How you doing, Jordan? Someone said it's a horrible idea, but it's not. Literally, all you have to do is just pick them. I've seen the right answers in there a million different times. Whatever. No. Whichever one of them's right. You just scan it. You say, I'll go with that one. I'll go with that one. I'll go. You're good. You're good. Chat just went insane, though. I mean, that was out of control. Out of control. When you get free stuff, it's easy to chat. It's easy to hop in the chat, but we don't even have 400 likes yet.
You want me to?
I should have been ready for that.
For what?
The trivia question.
Oh yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to Dallas then. Luka Doncic. 11K DraftKings, 11.4 on FanDuel. He's the one guy we have to start off with. It's funny because it's like, to some extent, his season has been a little bit underwhelming when you look at some of his games this month, some 40-point games, some low 50s. It's just not what you expect from him. But he's still like a 1.55 DraftKings point per minute guy. Huge usage, 40+% assist rate, great rebounder. He still does everything you need him to do, Adam. But where does he settle in today on DraftKings and on FanDuel? I think the one advantage is he has that small forward eligibility on DraftKings, which was a lot better before the Detroit news.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised actually when I looked just now and he's still like top 5 in ownership on DraftKings. I thought it would be kind of difficult to get to him since he is more expensive than all of those other pay up options we talked about. And there's not a ton of great value on the slate. But, that being said, there's nothing really negative to say about Luka. He does everything when he's out there. He rebounds well enough. He gets a bunch of assists, and obviously he's a high usage guy that scores a lot, and he's averaging about 36 minutes per game. So, you could see Porzingis sit tonight. We've talked about this a lot. I don't think it really matters. Maybe it increases Luka's ceiling a little bit because there's one less mouth to feed, but it doesn't change his average production for the positive at least. So not too concerned about what happens with Porzingis as far as Luka goes. And the matchup's not very good. I mean, the Lakers are a very good defensive team with or without Davis, and now you are getting him back for 15 minutes or so. They're also not a particularly fast team. So you have all that working against him. I think he projects pretty similarly to Giannis, a little bit more expensive. But, I think if you get to Luka, it's good. But again, it's not the same as like last night where you looked at Westbrook and it was just like, I don't know how not to like him. Here, it's just kind of like, yeah, like obviously I'm going to be happy if I roster Luka, but I'm not like starting my lineup with him. I think I'm starting my lineup more like with the cheaper guys and then seeing, if I can get to Luka.
Okay. Makes sense to me. The rest of Dallas, though, Porzingis on FanDuel is getting a little bit of love today. Aside from that, there's not much. Now, earlier in the day, someone like Jalen Brunson was actually somewhat appealing. I'm not necessarily sure how appealing he is now, but he's averaging around 28 minutes since the start of April. 44% of his minutes, of those minutes since this month, have come with Luka off the floor. Actually, no one's played more minutes with Luka off the floor than Brunson has this month, and like the 300 and some minutes that he's played. Is there any legitimacy to getting to someone like this on a kind of abbreviated slate and hoping he just has a big game? Or are we getting too cute with all the Detroit news now?
No, I mean, I think it's fine. It's just you have to keep in mind what you just said. You're hoping he has a big game. You're not looking at it saying, oh, man, I really think Jalen Brunson is going to do great today against the Lakers in his like 27 minutes. But he is cheap enough. He probably won't get much ownership. And so, I think he's fine just kind of, as a prayer type play. One other thing that I'll point out here is that Maxi Kleber not expected to play. And so we got Dwight Powell starting yesterday. He only played like 12 minutes. Even in the second half without Maxi, he only played 6 minutes. You had Willie Cauley-Stein as the backup center, basically, behind Porzingis. So if Porzingis were to sit, I think you potentially get Willie Cauley-Stein stepping in as, a good value at 3K.
All right. Is that it? Is that all we got for Dallas?
That's all I have for Dallas.
All right. Give me your top high-priced option on this slate and your top value play, just one of each.
I'll say Embiid at the top now that Simmons is out. Top value, I'll go, I don't know if Isaiah Stewart counts, but either Killian Hayes or Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, I think Cam Johnson, just given that he could get a lot of minutes because he's so cheap, makes some sense too.
Yeah, top value in terms of like guy that projects well enough at a really cheap price tag that I'm going to get way more than I'm comfortable with, I would say Cam Johnson.
Before you're talking about top value that might actually have a really decent game.
Yeah, top value that I actually feel good about putting in my lineup versus guy that projects as like the best point per dollar guy. Yeah,
no doubt about it. Hey, before we go and before I give you these results, because we got them, Jordan picked the winners. Thank you, Jordan. I can't imagine that was a not unstressful situation there, but you did great. Appreciate you. Jordan Klein coming through in the clutch. Give him a round of applause. Jock Market, sponsor of the Deeper Dive, another place coming through in the clutch. I say this all the time with the sponsors on these shows. Jock Market is no different. They want you to win money there, right? Trying to get a foothold in the industry, taking the DFS world, taking the stock market, blending them together and making a really awesome site. Not only that, but they have, promo codes, which is what we're looking for, right? You're always trying to get those promo codes to get some free money. If you use Awesemo 20, AWESEMO 20, all one word, you get a $20 bonus on your first deposit. It's an Awesemo exclusive, only for Awesemo community. So take advantage of that. Awesemo 20 for $20. Little background. Jock Market gives you the ability to buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money with guaranteed payouts for all shares at the end of the night. You got NBA, you got NHL, you got PGA, MLB, all of that great stuff. You can make money every hour, down to the minute, down to the second. It doesn't really matter. But the cool part is, and especially for you that are into the stock market, maybe in the trading crypto, they have an IPO every single day, an IPO period, right? Pre-game IPO where you can pick up shares of your favorite players, then you can buy them, you can sell them, or hold during the game based on your analysis. Download the app, use the promo code Awesemo20. But the cool part about the IPO, and all of this for that matter, buying, selling, holding shares in game, is you can see if someone gets out to a hot start and he's just getting lucky, or if someone's just missing all of their shots, but they're rimming in and out, he's getting good looks, he's got a great matchup, and people sour on him early in a game. You know that he's going to come in hot in the second quarter and put up huge numbers, or second half, put up big numbers. You can buy that at a discount and make big money on that each and every day with every player throughout all of the games, or pick them up in the IPO process earlier in the day before the rest of the field flocks to them. Really cool, awesome strategy, and you get $20 when you use the promo code Awesemo20 and deposit. using that. Download the Jock Market app. All right, Jordan, we are up against it already. So here we go. The 4 teams that I was a fan of that were not Philly teams back in the day. 1, the Washington, at the time, Redskins. 2, the Montreal Expos. Yes, that's right. 3, the Charlotte Hornets. And 4, the New Jersey Devils. It's disgraceful. I sicken myself. You don't need to tell me any of that. I will never relieve myself of that shame. But the facts are facts. And when Scott Stevens knocked Eric Lindros out of this world, I actually smiled. I look back and maybe regret that, but here we go. The winners are, Jordan, read them off. Who do we have? Yeah, go ahead.
All right, the winners are, we have Lincoln Hawk, Shane Lamb, Justin Derbyshire,
yep,
Mike Elzer, and Brad Levine are the winners. Those are the 5. I'll tag all you guys in chat as well, but that's going to be it right there.
Awesome. I love it. That'll do it. And I'm not showing that message, Alex, but thanks for the comment. It's been a fun one. Adam, any final thoughts before we hand this over to the Live Before Lock crew?
No, good luck.
Good luck. All right, coming up next, it's Live Before Lock. Who do we got? We got Greg Ehrenberg, Eric Lindquist taking you up till 7 p.m. Good luck. All right, congrats to all you guys that won. Good luck tonight. And go to store.awesemo.com or check it out at awesemo.com if you want to get some merch. Check out these sweet hats and everything else and show them off. Maybe even send me a picture on Twitter. Peace. What's up? Thanks, man.
See you guys.
What's that? Yeah, support at awesemo.com. All right, bro.
A second. I can't hear Eric either. Yeah, Eric, you should probably just leave Zoom and come back in. That, for some reason, fixes the problem a lot. Let me see. No, I can't hear him now, though. Can he not hear us? I'll type in the chat. Yeah, I typed it in the chat already that Eric was. There we go. There we go.
Yo. Yeah.
Are we on now? Did we start? Did we get the countdown? All right, good. We're good. I guess we're good to go. Eric maybe could hear us, maybe not. Maybe we could hear Eric. If not, hey, one-man show. I could talk for an hour, and what big deal would that be? But show tonight is sponsored by Jock Market, which what that means. Thursday night, Eric and I, not only are we going to be talking for the next hour about NBA DFS, but after the slate locks, we'll be talking about the Jock Market slate as well. So, Eric, tell us why is the show delayed? How come we did this to us?
I have no idea. I mean, my internet, you don't need me anyway. Just play the top 5 projected players on Awesemo.com. Just go to the top of the list, play everybody who's chalk, and you're set to go.
There we go. Chalk Lindquist. What do we even need him here for? And by the way, ownership projection is free today on Awesemo.com. So we really didn't need Eric for anything. We have all his takes right here. We just go right to the DFS. The Awesemo DFS projections page, we go to the ownership. We see, hey, Josh Jackson, 26.6% on DraftKings. Eric probably likes him. Kobe White, 24.8% on. Eric probably likes him.
Just love them all. I was going to say, I don't even have any tabs up here. It's just kind of the back and forth of having Zoom and things going on here at home. Fiance's working, I'm working, and we are good to go, though. Ready to party.
Yeah, and I think we all know that it just you didn't pay the $9.99 for the 24 hours of the Holiday Inn internet service. It cut off. It happens, right? You just put it on auto charge on your bill, and then it just renews every night, and then it's not an issue.
They knock on the door, and I hide. I hide every single night. It's going to happen eventually where I have to pay the toll, but we're going to be quiet. We're not going to let them know that I'm here.
All right, so let's start talking about the slate. The most recent news we got, Jalen Brown, he was assumed to be out. He was listed as doubtful all day. The Celtics have officially listed him out. I know people sometimes panic a little bit when they go, hey, how come this guy's listed probable and hasn't been ruled in? How come this guy's doubtful, hasn't officially been ruled out? But now we officially know that Jalen Brown is not going to be playing tonight. So with that in mind, how are you handling the Celtics situation, and how do you feel about Jason Tatum as a pay-up option?
Yeah, I love Jason Tatum. I think 10-2 is interesting over on DK, but I kind of expect for him to be getting a little bit less ownership, expecting him. Yeah, I was expecting him to be lower owned than Giannis, just because we do have some decent enough value here on this slate. So figuring out what I'm going to do between those two, as I think on the earlier show, they were talking a lot about how many good power forwards there are on this slate. And outside of Luka, there's really nobody else that you're really wanting to pay up for. And on DraftKings specifically, you don't want to go to 10K Vooch. You don't want to go to some of these other places. So figuring out what you're going to do with power forwards is a huge part of this slate. Right now, I've got a little bit more Giannis than Tatum, but I obviously like both.
Yeah, and actually, I kind of think that's a conversation that you bring up there. I think it's a good point, is that Tatum as a standalone, I think he really has to be compared to Giannis, particularly on DraftKings. FanDuel's to an extent also, though they're kind of in different price ranges, at least on FanDuel. DraftKings are priced pretty similarly, and I certainly prefer Giannis as a play. I think something that's going a little bit overlooked when it comes to Giannis is, so he had missed some time. He came back, he was playing limited minutes, and his minutes finally got back up to a more normal number last game. So first game back coming from injury, only 24.9 minutes for Giannis, played just under 25 minutes. Then the game after that, 29 minutes against Memphis. And then the other day against Phoenix, it was a game that went to overtime, but he played 35 minutes in that game. So that makes me think that they're starting to get a little more comfortable playing Giannis bigger minutes. I don't think he goes out and plays 36 or anything like that. But just the fact that we could fairly comfortably say he's going to play over 30, he's priced way down on DraftKings versus what we normally see for Giannis. I don't think his ownership is quite high enough. So I prefer him to Tatum. You also said that you liked him more, but how much more? Like in terms of...
I guess the other way we could talk about it is how much more I like him compared to Luka, which I think is quite a bit. Looking over on FanDuel specifically, 1.62 fantasy points per minute. Right now, we've got him right at around 32 minutes, which makes sense. Luka Doncic sitting at 1.48 on the entire season. So it's pretty similar projections for the two. No different positions over on FanDuel, but I just think that a Giannis who's $400 less over there makes just an easier play for me. And I know he can be plugged over at a small forward position over on DK, which helps, but I still feel pretty comfortable taking over on Giannis because, as you said, I just don't think the ownership is reflective of where he is. He's generally the best fantasy player on the planet. If you just sort it over on DraftKings at the power forward position, I mean, he just kind of blows everybody away in terms of fantasy point rate, 1.68, Zion 1.32. So if they're going to be playing within like a minute or two of each other, it's curious to me why their ownership is about identical on a slate where we have so much good value.
Yeah, and actually, we just recently got an ownership update, so I'm just refreshing that to see where everybody's at now. Giannis right now, 18.6% projected ownership on DraftKings. Luka Doncic, 20.4. Now the highest owned pay up option is Joel Embiid coming in at 26.2%. So now that we have that ownership update, I think that's a good transition point because we can talk about the Sixers injury news with Tobias Harris now officially ruled in, Ben Simmons ruled out. Joel Embiid playing, although a little bit of, did you see the comments that Joel Embiid made after the game last night?
No, I just saw that he basically said, I'm flat out playing tomorrow. I think it was kind of part of it.
He also said he's hurt right now and he doesn't care and he's going to play through it, which I'm like, boy, that doesn't sound great. I'm trying to find.
What are you doing? Do what the Lakers are doing. Just take 2 months to bring Anthony Davis back, play him 15 minutes a night here going forward, and just relax. Like, it's basically an extended break for them at this point. I mean, obviously, him and LeBron were both actually hurt, but like, there's no way that you rush either one of them back. Joel Embiid, you got to realize, I know that he's young and that he wants to go out and just like make a statement and try to win MVPs and do all that goodies, but what you do in the playoffs is magnified. And so, like, take your time, buddy.
Yeah, so I actually nerfed his projection a little bit for that because if you look at the numbers with Ben Simmons off the court, they are really strong for Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris. Like to the point where if I just gave him the rates that he has with Ben Simmons off the court, Joel Embiid would pop up in almost every single one of my lineups. So given this is the tail end of the back-to-back and some of the comments he made yesterday, like I'm getting to Embiid still, except I'm a little scared by what he said yesterday. But so Joel Embiid, when Simmons is off the court this year, 42.4% usage rate, scores 69.08 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. Tobias Harris, with Ben Simmons off the court this year, 28.4% usage rate and scores 45.54 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. So what are you doing with these guys, Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, now that Simmons officially out with an illness?
So yesterday, Joel Embiid was one of my higher owned plays because those rates that you spoke of, I mean, it's pretty insane how much better of a play he becomes when you get Ben Simmons off the floor. Kind of does everything for this basketball team. I didn't necessarily I'm not coming down off of him. I'm still going to have an absolute ton today, but we did just get some news that I think is going to shake things up a little bit on DraftKings in terms of the center position, because we got Wendell Carter Jr. officially out, Mo Bamba thrown in there. So now that adds another center to the fray, figuring out exactly what you're going to do at that position between Embiid, Stewart, and him. Like those three are just going to be so above and away the highest owned centers, and getting that right in tournaments is going to be a huge part of it. But looking at the value that we have at other positions, I'm curious whether I'm going to have how you prioritize those three is going to be very important in tournaments.
So I'm going to say right now, my priority is absolutely going to be Mo Bamba at the center position now that Wendell Carter is officially out. And that's going to change the amount of exposure I have to guys like Joel Embiid. Giannis, not as much, although he does have center eligibility. We could play him at forward also. But, like where Embiid's only center eligible, I'm still going to have him in my player pool. But Bamba's probably going to be my highest owned player now, I assume, on DK. So it's a weird trickle-down effect now, because that probably raises the amount of exposure I get to Luka also, just because we have a big man now that's going to be taking up a spot in a lot of my lineups now, just because I'm looking at Mo Bamba's rates right now. So Bamba this season playing 12.6 minutes per game, scoring 15.4 DraftKings points in those minutes. Now that he's starting, I mean, even if we're conservative and say like, hey, Mo Bamba, right, struggles to play big minutes, maybe he gets hurt and they don't want to push him. Even if you give him 25 minutes, you're still looking at over, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 DraftKings points for Bamba at his current rates. So
yeah, 1.22 per game or per minute, excuse me. Yeah, it's an absolute smash. You're 100% correct. And I think this also becomes curious. Giannis has got to have his ownership come up now too. I would expect that at least. And if it doesn't, I mean, that makes it just so much easier to go over the top of him too.
Yeah, and I'm just updating this right now. Anything else you want to mention about the Sixers? Are there any plays that you want to get to outside of maybe some of Tobias Harris or Joel Embiid?
I mean, we don't have that starting lineup yet. I haven't seen it, but I think Matisse Thybulle gets at least some consideration if he's going to be playing the big minutes again. Looking at him at 4K over on FanDuel, where you have to play two, somebody can spike a stocks upside any time that he shows up. I mean, he had 5 last time out, 4 the game before it, 3 the game before that. So I think on FanDuel specifically, he's somebody that I'm going to be getting to a lot more. 31 and 35 minutes. If you conservatively say 28 there, he's still going to pop up in some lineups for me there.
Yeah, so the other thing too is that, and I don't think we've seen Furkan Korkmaz is questionable, right? Mm-hmm. So If Korkmaz plays, I assume that Thibault comes off the bench, but Thibault could end up starting if Korkmaz is out. But with Tobias Harris back, I would assume that Korkmaz and Harris both start if Korkmaz is able to play. But still a little bit of variables in that Sixers situation. But let's move over to the Orlando news now, because, I mean, I said it before, Mo Bamba is probably going to be my most rostered player right now. The Magic, a team that at least earlier in the day, I didn't think I was going to have that much interest in, but since then, Terence Ross has gotten ruled out. James Ennis has gotten ruled out. Mo Bamba is now starting with Wendell Carter Jr. out. So a lot going on here. To me, the two guys that are standing out the most are Mo Bamba and Cole Anthony. Both of them are strong plays. Also a really good matchup against New Orleans Pelicans. Do you see it the same way, or is there anybody else also that you like?
Yeah, I see it the same way. I think on FanDuel, Dwayne Bacon at shooting guard 3,800. I wasn't enamored with this slate coming in. It's definitely improved drastically with some of the Detroit value that we can plug and play. But I still think that at 3,800, if you're really trying to go up and go the Giannis, Luka, and then now Mo Bamba at center, or Joel Embiid, and kind of mixing and matching between those four, I think getting up and playing a guy, or going down and playing a guy like Dwayne Bacon also makes some sense. RJ Hampton, I absolutely love as a basketball player. Problem is he never really gets over those 21 minutes. If Cole Anthony were to somehow get into some foul trouble or something were to exist there where he got up to 24, 25, he'd be somebody to take a look at the complete min over on FanDuel, and over on DraftKings, where he's sitting at 3,900 would just be a contrarian option. And I wouldn't try to be going like nuts with him by any means, but this is a 6-game slate, and finding a way to get a little bit different, he wouldn't be a terrible option for it. I'm curious what you think about Chuma Okeke as well, because he's garnering a little bit of attention, but 5,500 at power forward over on FanDuel. I don't really want to be going to that mid-range of FanDuel power forwards because of how good the spend-up options are. But if you're trying to get different, he wouldn't be a terrible way, and there's definitely some more looks to go around now.
Yeah, so I am rerunning my lineups right now, and I'm pretty sure just eyeballing it, Okeke is going to be somebody who I get to a little bit, at least on DraftKings. I agree with you. It's a little different FanDuel versus DraftKings. FanDuel, I don't really think he's a necessary play at all, just because I think there are really good pay up options at the power forward position. And there's so much value elsewhere. We're going to have to pay up somewhere. And now I think it's going to really make sense to pay up at power forward. It kind of already made sense for me to pay up at power forward. But now looking at the lineups that I'm building on DraftKings, Okeke, I'm getting a small percentage of. He's not a great points per dollar play, but I do have him as a slight value in 32 minutes. That has him scoring about 29 and a half DraftKings points for me against the Pelicans. And I think he's going to have to eat up some of those center minutes now that Wendell Carter isn't in there. Because, I mean, the other available big men for the Magic, it is Dante Hall, Robert Franks, Mo Bamba, and Chuma Okeke. That's everybody. Those are all the available forwards that they have tonight. So Okeke, I assume, is going to have to play over 30 minutes. And I think those kind of minutes at his price tag makes him somebody in play for me, but not a priority play, just a guy who's going to be in a few lineups.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think that's the right way. You don't have to get nuts with him by any means, but somebody to also just say to sprinkle into lineups for sure.
We do have a super chat here from Darren Unger, who's asking for FanDuel Cash, Dwayne Bacon, and Giannis, or Tobias Harris and Marcus Smart. That's pretty easily Bacon and Giannis for me.
Pretty easy, yes.
And for Tobias Harris, he's somebody, I guess we didn't really talk about him too much, but I'm getting to him in GPPs. But with him coming off an injury, also a tough matchup against the Bucks, I'd be a little hesitant to put him into a cash game. But GPP, I think he's somebody to definitely get exposure to. And the latest ownership for Tobias Harris on DraftKings, he is currently picking up. It would help if I could spell Harris when I do the search function here.
Usually helps.
16% ownership on DraftKings at 7,800, and on FanDuel, Tobias Harris, we currently have projected for 23% ownership at 7,500. So Tobias Harris, like I said, somebody being the GPP player pool, a little concerned about playing him in cash games coming off the knee injury. All right, so Magic news. Cole Anthony, I know I touched on briefly before about him being somebody who I'm getting a decent amount of, and now I'm really getting to him a lot in my build. So Cole Anthony, and especially now, no Michael Carter Jr. in there for them. If you look at the last 3 games, the playing time and the production for Cole Anthony, 29 minutes, 34 minutes, 31 minutes in those games, 35, 39, 39 DraftKings points, really strong production. The price has gone up, but not to a point that's any bit of a concern for me. So Cole Anthony, I know you said you like him, but how much do you like him? He's going to be one of my like 5 or so most rostered players.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I mean, averaging just over 0.9 fantasy points per minute on the year. I think he's just really good too. Watching him out there, he's somebody that I have no problem getting to a little bit over top of the field. 6,300 would look prohibitive if you've been playing the last couple of weeks looking over at FanDuel, but I also think that there's still some room to be going above that as well. Terence Ross was unproductive when he was on the floor as it is, but having him off definitely helps just to solidify a little bit of that usage for Cole Anthony going forward. Fills up the box score in a nice way. 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 rebounds. Does a lot of things, so not completely shooting dependent. I kind of like that out of a guy in the mid-range.
All right. By the way, we got one more super chat here from our guy SolDope1234. He's saying, would you forego Stewart on FanDuel for double pay up? I'll say this: if you're going cheap at power forward on FanDuel, although Stewart not really that cheap, but he is 5,500. He is the power forward that I would look to in the cheaper range. For me, I prefer the pay up options. I think Stewart is really strong as a points per dollar play. But I still have him right now 4th in terms of priority power forwards for me on FanDuel. Tatum, Porzingis, and Giannis are all higher priority plays for me than Isaiah Stewart. So I'll ask you, is Isaiah Stewart one of your 2 most rostered power forwards you prefer spending up at the position?
No, he's actually 5th, which is shocking. I'm getting to a lot more of him over on DraftKings where you can play 2 centers. And I just reran my crunch over there as well. Still popping up in quite a few lineups there. And it's strange because Isaiah Stewart has been a plug and play at power forward when we've gotten this situation with Jeremy Grant and with Mason Plumlee off the floor in these last couple of games. But I don't need the value the way that I did before. And I think there are such ceilings on that top end. Now, given Isaiah Stewart can go out and make you feel sorry that you made that decision by putting up 45, 50. I think that's well within the range of outcomes. He's done that a couple times already, but I'm definitely siding with you as well, where I think getting to Jason Tatum, getting up top to guys like even Tobias Harris as a pivot. I've got right now, Tatum is my most rostered. Zion is number 2, Giannis number 2, Zion number 3, Kristaps 4, and Isaiah Stewart comes in 5th right now because I have value that I like at other positions.
And one more super chat here from Jordan Reeves. He's asking, for FanDuel cash, would you rather roster Cole Anthony or Kemba Walker? So to me, I mean, if you just have the salary to spend, it's Kemba Walker. I have Kemba Walker projected for more fantasy points, but there's also a $600 price gap between them. So I think that on a points per dollar basis, I think Cole Anthony is the better points per dollar play. But if you have the $600, then just go up to Kemba Walker.
Agreed.
And all right, those are all the super chats from now. As for other news that we're waiting on, I think we should probably touch on this right now because it's not really important for FanDuel, but it's actually something that's kind of important for me on DraftKings. Dario Saric is questionable to play. He's officially considered a game time decision. I expect that we're going to get the news of whether he's going to be in or out for tonight's game against the Celtics, probably sometime in the next 15, 20 minutes or so. But I think we should be out ahead of this news just because it's something that people might not have a whole lot of time to react to. And with Dario Saric and Cam Johnson both around min price on DK, these are guys who individually I both like his plays. And if Dario Saric is out, I'm going to like Cameron Johnson a pretty decent amount as a value play. So what do you make of Dario Saric being questionable?
We just got that news.
Oh, there we go.
As you were saying that, yeah, I didn't want to cut you off, but Dario Saric is available.
Word.
So he's playing. So reacting to that a little bit, Dario 3,200, I don't think it's as necessary as what it was earlier in the day before we got the Detroit news. Projecting out fine, gives you access to some of those top guys. I think Adam talked about it a little bit on the earlier show about how people around 3K or 3,200, what they can do for the rest of your lineup. But now I think there's enough like 4K, 5K value that just stands out so substantially better that I don't really necessarily have as much interest in going to a guy like Dario. I'm going to get a little bit because I'm making a bunch of lineups on DK, but I'm not going to get there in a meaningful way.
So a couple things about Dario Saric. First of all, he was listed as questionable. I assume that even though he's healthy enough to play, he is not going to be quite at 100%. He's also been fairly miserable lately. So here's the last 3 games for Dario Saric. He's played 18 minutes, scored 12 fantasy points, 18 minutes in a start, scored 9 fantasy points, and then 9 minutes and 6 fantasy points. So even though he's in, it's hard for me to have a whole lot of confidence in him. He's going to be a very low owned GPP play for me. But Cam Johnson, it's kind of funny because I was kind of building my lineups assuming Sarge wasn't going to play just because he's been so poor lately. To me, it was like, hey, he's not playing well. He's not 100%. What's even the just rest him, right? Get him healthy. So I was kind of just planning on hoping I could just get to a lot of Cam Johnson. And now I kind of don't want to switch off him just because I feel like I'm kind of committed to it at this point. But Cam Johnson at 3,500 on DraftKings, I think he could still pick up a couple extra minutes due to the Dario Saric potentially not being totally healthy. And I mean, he is. Let's see, what was the latest ownership on Cam Johnson?
Not only that, you're just taking Jay Crowder off the floor, and he only played the 13 minutes. Cam Johnson came in yesterday and played pretty well. Known 3-point shooter. He went through his own little miserable stretch earlier in the year and is starting to come out on the other side of it. I like Cameron Johnson at 3,500. I have no problem getting to a bunch of him in tournaments, in cash games, because he kind of gives you access to some of those other pieces as well. And if we are trying to make everybody fit, if we're trying to fit Joel Embiid alongside Giannis, alongside Luka, and mixing and matching in a bunch of lineups, like I think we probably should be at this point in time, 3,500 does a lot for your builds to be able to get there on DK.
Yeah, I'm sticking with him. I feel like I should downgrade his projection, but there's this thing where I just liked my lineup so much with Cameron Johnson in, and I still like if he gets, especially on this slate where there's so many strong pay up options, and it's not like there's a min price guy who I'm like, oh, that's the guy who's going to go out and score 30 fantasy points at min price. There's no O'Shea Brissett on tonight's slate. There's no team like the Pacers where everybody's out. So I do think that if we're able to get like 20 fantasy points out of Cam Johnson, I haven't projected higher than 20 fantasy points. I think there's a pretty good chance that he could land in the optimal lineup just because in a situation where Luka has a big game, Giannis has a big game, Embiid has a big game, all three studs that I've projected pretty well. I think Cam Johnson really unlocks me being able to roster multiple of those guys in the same lineup. So
yeah, and not only that, but like if you downgrade his projection, what's going to get inserted for some of those other players, like a Denzel Valentine? No, thanks. Going to like a Dario Saric more, I don't think you need to do that either. Like, I think the ramifications of downgrading and switching out of that probably compromises your lineups a little more than it helps it.
Well, I think my lineups have just become a little more balanced, right? So like I have a chunk of Embiid right now. I have a chunk of Doncic, Giannis. I think that all those guys would just take a slight step back in my exposures if I was to downgrade Cam Johnson, but we're sticking with it. I'm not changing anything at this juncture until we, and then we're going to get some, crazy injury news that's going to come out in like 5 seconds. It's going to change everything anyway. But,
yeah.
All right. So there we go. I summoned the news. I brought up, what are we going to do about Cam Johnson, Dario Saric, and then Dario Saric immediately gets ruled in. So that's settled, but let's go position by position now, because I think we've hit on all of the news so far that's been pressing. So starting at the point guard position, the guy who we talked about before that I have the most exposure to right now for my point guard exposure is Cole Anthony. I wish my computer would just scroll, but I know off the top of my head it is Cole Anthony anyway. But is he, I know you said you liked him. Is he also one of your most rostered point guards, or is there somebody else that is at the top of your exposure?
Kobe White's the top of my exposure right now, and 5,500 sitting down there in that mid-range until last game. So he played 31 minutes last time out, had a 17.4% usage rate, only chucked it 10 times. Before that, we had a 26.5, 23.9, and 27% usage rate in 3 of his first starts since you've had Levine get put on the shelf. I like his assist rate as it's been coming up. It does seem like there's some continuity between him and Vooch. 5,500 is just too cheap, and I'm getting a little bit more of a discount going down from him. 6,400, Cole Anthony, no problem getting there. Killian Hayes is actually my second, though. I think that makes a lot of sense. Somebody that I know you've been high on constantly, so I'm curious why he might not be your number one guy for a little bit cheaper price point as opposed to Cole Anthony. But again, I do like the idea of getting to more Cole Anthony. He's my third. I'm getting 44% of him over on DraftKings as well. Then it goes Kemba Walker, and DeJounte Murray is somebody that I'm kind of surprised isn't, like, you want to talk about being bad. He's been bad the last 3, but there's a ton of upside sitting there for him up against this Detroit team. I feel like he's going a little bit underrepresented today.
So Killian Hayes is somebody who is in my player pool that I'm getting a decent amount of exposure to. He's actually my third most rostered point guard right now. It is Cole Anthony 1, Kobe White 2, Killian Hayes 3, DeJounte Murray 4 for me at the moment, and then Kemba Walker 5.
All right,
that's good. So on Killian Hayes, I mean, I still have a lot of exposure to him, so it's not like I'm not on him. But the reason that I am not getting to him, to your point, is him is like my most roster point guard. And by the way, Hamidou Diallo is questionable to play. If he ends up being out, then I would have to end up upgrading Killian Hayes. But Killian Hayes was listed on the injury report earlier today as questionable with his hip injury. And don't forget also the hip injury is something that caused him to miss almost the entire season. The Pistons took him this year with a high draft pick, and then he's had to miss how many games he played in this year? Like 12 or something like that.
Killian Hayes, he's played he's been on a little
14.
bit of a streak here. Yeah, 14.
So he's played 14 games. So he's missed all but 14 games due to a hip injury. And just because he was listed as questionable in the injury report earlier in the day with that hip injury, I'm a little concerned that he doesn't get the full minutes allotment that he's been playing lately. So I just docked his minutes a little bit, but I'm still overweight to the field on him. It's just the difference between him being like my third, fourth most roster point guard being somebody who I like as much as Cole Anthony. But Killian Hayes, my third most roster point guard right now. I'm overweight to the field on him. So certainly no issues with him. DeJounte Murray, something you said there with him about how he struggled lately. And here is what I like about DeJounte Murray for today. So something I brought up a lot recently when I've been doing basketball content, doing shows, is when we have these teams that are like borderline playoff teams that are really fighting for the playoff spot. And right now the Spurs barely hang on to a spot in the play-in game. We've seen these teams, especially like the Warriors with Steph Curry, they're giving their starters more minutes. So DeJounte Murray over the next 3 weeks, the final stretch of the season, I think we see him play a few more minutes. I think we could see the usage uptick. So for all those reasons, due to where the Spurs are in the standings, I think that the potential playing time upside is enough for me to be liking him as a GPP play. So I'm not too concerned about the recent struggle performances for the year. He's been a very good fantasy producer.
Yeah, that's kind of part of it too. It's just a recency bias thing. Even slammed in the middle of his last 5 games, you have a 46.75 up against Portland in a loss, 24.2% usage. I like seeing even 30.4% usage. You just shot the ball not very well, 4 for 14 from the field. I guess 3 from 8 from 3. Those assists have come down a little bit here. I know DeMar DeRozan plays a part in some of this, but I just think there's a ton of upside sitting there, and getting him under 20% on any slate like this, like under a 6-gamer win. I do like every single point guard sitting up there with Hayes, White, Luka, Kemba, everybody sitting above him in ownership, but I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be getting to DeJounte Murray right now at 7,200, a little bit lower tag than some of those mid-sevens he's been at recently.
All right. Any other point guards that we have not brought up that you think warrant discussion, or somebody you have a decent amount of ownership to?
No, I'm having a tough time figuring out what to do with Chris Paul coming on a back-to-back, because he's just kind of been in peak physical form. He's been going to this new diet for the last year. Maybe like that's playing a part of it, but an older guy, it's just going to be surprising to me coming off of a game like last night, 34 minutes, how he can keep going out there and kind of keep repeating that. Because if I'm not going to be playing a bunch of Chris Paul, like I think that there is like some tournament shots that I want to be taking on campaign. I think he's somebody that I've kind of just randomly nuked his projection to get to like 5-6% of in my portfolio every single day. Because if he spikes those games where he has like 26 minutes, or when they completely run teams out of the gym, which I don't necessarily expect them to do to Boston, but Boston's had a lot of these like lopsided games here too in recent days. And if I'm going to get like a 1 or 2% Cameron Payne, I'm going to get to a tiny bit more of it than the field, because if he gets to 24%, a decent fantasy producer.
So I have been terrified of the Suns for the last few days, just because, well, there's a couple reasons. First of all, I have a lot of money invested in them winning the division. I bet them like way off at the beginning of the year, 12-1 to win the Pacific Division. And I've been sweating that bet all year. And I've been dreading this stretch of games coming up at the end of the season, where they only have 4 home games left on their schedule for the rest of the entire season. And they play a brutal stretch of games right now in the East, and they're playing it something like, I think it was 9 games in 15 days. They're in the middle of that stretch. Also, like you said, the tail end of a back-to-back. There have been games that we've seen during this stretch, and they're about halfway through it now. We've seen them limit the minutes of Devin Booker and Chris Paul. Not to the point where they're playing, 22 minutes or anything, but where Booker plays, like 31 minutes, Chris Paul plays 29. I think this could be one of those spots. To me, I think fatigue is a pretty big issue for them tonight. So I don't like Booker or Paul for GPPs. I've said that for other games also, like the Milwaukee game that ends up going to overtime and those guys crush. But yeah, I'm really afraid of their minutes with where they're standing right now.
Yeah, Sean Rowe, he's saying that, like, CP3 plays every back-to-back with necessary minutes. Yeah, maybe necessary minutes for them to win basketball games, but we're talking about fantasy basketball, and I want him to be getting over 32, 34 minutes because we have to compare him to every other point guard on the slate. He's more expensive. He would have to outproduce them. He would have to play similar to what he did yesterday, and I'm not saying Chris Paul can't do it, but he's definitely getting up there in age. The Suns have playoff aspirations. They've been a good basketball team throughout this year. I find it difficult that they would push him for a bunch of extra minutes. That's just kind of why I think when you get a guy like Campaign who can go out there and play some meaningful minutes, has shown an upside here in the past, and you're going to get him at 1%. Why not get to like 4 or 5%? I know that I'm the chalk master flex, but I have to let it be known that I'm going to have some Cameron Payne, and you haven't heard that name anywhere else today.
So I'm just going through, by the way, Chris Paul's box scores and looking at recent back-to-back. So the last time the Suns played on consecutive games, he played 26 minutes on the front end of the back-to-back. He played 26 minutes on the back end of the back-to-back. Last night he played 34 minutes, by the way. The back-to-back before then, he played, I think it was
26 minutes.
Utah, and no, that was the most recent one. I'm trying to find the one before then. It was Utah and the Clippers. He played 32 minutes on the tail end of the back-to-back, although he also had to play 43 minutes the night before because it was a game against Utah that I think went to double overtime, if I remember correctly. Then before that, against Chicago and Atlanta, he played 32 minutes and 31 minutes. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of games this year where he's played around his normal rate, but we've also seen times where, he's played 26, 29 minutes. So I don't know. I think his minutes are going to be in check, just the read that I'm making on it. And he's not somebody I want to have in my GPP player pool. There's a lot of good point guard options. If I'm wrong on the minutes, so be it. That's definitely within the realm of possibility. I'm wrong about stuff all the time. I'm right more than I'm wrong, but there's definitely times I'm going to be wrong. I think that Chris Paul's minutes are going to be limited today. And that's the stance I'm taking. We do have another super chat here from R. Cathelza. He's saying Tatum and Dante, I assume he means DiVincenzo, or Tobias and Drew Holiday, DK single entry GPP. Well, I don't like Dante DiVincenzo and I don't like Drew Holiday.
Yeah. If we're going to go one side of it, I think I'm going to go the Tobias Drew. We've seen Drew take over some games and have an actual upside of late. Dante DiVincenzo feels like a little bit like just a completely unnecessary spot. We both like two sides of that equation. We like the Tatum Tobias side. So maybe play those two, find some different value pieces and move. But if one of those two, I'm going to go Tobias Drew.
Yeah, or we could just we could give the really unhelpful answer if like salary didn't matter. Just play Tatum and Tobias and forget about the cheap guys. Those guys going to score more fantasy points. But
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Chalkmaster Flex, that would be the answer I go with. But
Chalkmaster Flex. I didn't mean to nickname myself, but it just came out so naturally.
Hey,
because chalk comes naturally to me. Oh, you mean playing the best plays on the slate? That's my fault.
Hey, I just want the guys who are going to score the most fantasy points. So, hey, why even stop at the Tatum and Tobias together? Why not just go all the way up? Just play pivot. Go Giannis and Luka in those two spots instead. Yeah, that's the way to go. We do have one more super chat here from Ruben Mitchell. He's saying Zion or Tatum for a last spot in FanDuel single entry. That is Tatum for me.
Yeah, I'm the biggest Zion fan on planet Earth, and I'm going to still play Tatum today more.
All right, that is going to cover the super chat. So we'll get into the shooting guard position. But first, guys, like the video. I haven't hawked for likes yet. I'm not good at hawking for likes because number one, I like what I do. Like I don't like my own tweets. I don't like my own videos when I'm on them. But you guys should do it for me. Like the video. Also subscribe to the YouTube channel because not only are Eric and I going to be covering the NBA slate for the next 20 minutes, we're going to be doing the jock market after that, and then we have the MMA strategy show coming on after us. So stick around for that, and you'll know when it goes live if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. And just when I thought we had hit all the super chats, our guy Gene B. Kim, who leaving the magic 777 number that he's been leaving a lot in the super chats, he's saying Hagoromo chalk is the best. Y'all should look it up. Can't go back to teaching without it. I have no clue what that means. Do you know what that reference is?
I'm scared to Google it. Do I dare Google it while we're on a show? Is my computer going to self-implode?
I don't know.
Hagoromo sound that could be multiple things. I'm just gonna Google it here quick. Here we go.
All right. How many naked people just popped up on your screen?
Hagoromo chalk. Oh, it's like actual chalk. It's like a specific type of chalk. It's luminescent. There's some luminous chalk, some colorful chalk, some full touch. So it must be like a famous chalk brand. So that's what it is. Hagoromo chalk is the best. As a teacher, he must know what feels best when he's going up to the board and writing everything out for his lovely little students. It's something they don't know that he's a quadzillionaire at this point in time from DFS, but when he's teaching those little simplings how to do the things that he's a master at, he's using Hagoromo chalk.
Yeah, he should just use his Hagoromo chalk to write the top stacks on his board every day and be like, guys, there's no reason to get a job. You just play MLB DFS, you print money, and then you don't need to work the rest of your life.
Put $1 and get a car. Put $1 and get a car. Put $1 and get a car.
All right. The shooting guard position. To me, I like Josh Jackson. Chalk play. Eric, I know that you are chalk master flex, but to me, Josh Jackson, I mean, I can't get away from him with all these guys that are out for Detroit. And Josh Jackson has been a good fantasy producer when he's been on the court, but going over the full injury report for the Detroit Pistons tonight, Hamidou Diallo is currently questionable. Then we have Wayne Ellington out, Corey Joseph out, Jeremy Grant out, Dennis Smith Jr. out, Rodney Magruder out, Mason Plumlee out. So Josh Jackson, really no choice other than to play him a healthy amount of minutes. And I have to figure he's going to get more usage with all these guys out. It's hard to run, like a Curie with these guys off the court because
there's like 10 minutes total when you do it. It's like, in 10 minutes on the court, he had a 48% usage rate. That's great. But that's basically what Josh Jackson is.
Yeah, he just comes out, he shoots. Is he any good in real life? No, not particularly, except he's always been a good fantasy player. And this is a particular chalk that I'm going to be eating tonight. Will you be eating the Hagoromo chalk that is Josh Jackson?
Just give me all the Hagoromo chalk. Just give it all to me. Nom, 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 nom. C is for chalky. It's good enough for me. How about that?
Yeah, why not?
Where's that? I don't know. I just tried to take it up a level for y'all.
That's, could we get your YouTube avatar to just be you eating chalk? Like, wouldn't that actually be the best?
So I got called out by Jordan here in between, like right before the show, where he's like, oh, because you said avatar and not emoji, that's why you don't have one. And I imagined along with it, that was the whole essence of Jordan just kind of coming in Twitter, putting the beat down and leaving.
Jordan thinks he's all fancy because he shows up to his producer desk with his hickey on his neck. He's like, yeah, look at me. I run stuff around here. Listen, I don't know. I don't know if you see that. Oh, he logged on that first day and he was like this, just leaning up. Meanwhile, what he really did was like, Mom, can you give me a hickey? I just want to look cool at work, Mom. Give me a hickey. Can you do it for me? And then he shows up like, oh, guys, look how cool I am. I know what emojis are. And it's like, please.
You at a vampire convention? No. I mean, this is just, what are you doing, Jordan? What are you doing? This is a professional work setting, and we're trying to be professionals doing our jobs. And you show up here just showing off, okay? Whatever.
Anyway, YouTube avatar, Eric eating chalk. Let's get on it if anybody's capable of doing that. That's what I want to be.
Don't head snap again. Never head snapped before, but that's what I imagined. So the bend and snap from Legally Blonde. Yes, I am a cultured individual. I will let it be known.
I could see you getting a concussion doing that on a show. You like snap your head too quick, a little bit of whiplash, get a concussion, kind of like the UFC event last week. Somebody got pushed and got a concussion. But anyway, we do have another super chat here. Soldope 1234. FanDuel. Cam/DiVincenzo or Brunson versus Bridges Bacon. All right, so let me try to make sense of this. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. So Cam DiVincenzo. We like Cam. We don't like DiVincenzo. I don't like Brunson. I don't like pretty much anybody from Dallas outside of Doncic, or versus Bridges and Bacon. I don't like Bridges. He's very expensive now for having Devontae Graham back on the floor alongside him now too. Let's go. If you had to do one of the two, I'm going to go Bridges Bacon, but I don't feel fantastic about it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Bacon is pretty clearly the best play of all those guys on FanDuel, so I'm going to go with...
Oh, my God. DeJounte Murray ruled out.
Okay, well, now we have to change everything. So,
cool.
All right, By the way, we also got a super chat here from Robert Warren, but there's no question in there. If you do have a question, put it in the YouTube chat and then at me. But right now we have to talk about the Spurs, and we have to talk about DeJounte Murray, because this now changes everything. By the way,
Patty Mills ruled out.
All right, so this game starts at 8:30. So at least we do have some time. But yeah, this is
no more playing around.
No, this is serious. No more making fun of Jordan or his mom for giving him a hickey. We have to figure this out now. So all right, let me figure out the on-off court numbers for something I did not think to look up at any point during the day. Is that
no? I mean, this just becomes DeMar DeRozan on FanDuel, like, is going to jump off the page. Like, jump off the page. I'm probably going to get to kind of a scary amount of him. Mills off.
All right. So no Mills, no DeJounte Murray. Not that the Mills one is going to matter all that much, but Derek, actually, surprisingly, this does not do a whole bunch to DeMar DeRozan's production.
Lonnie Walker kind of jumps up 23.3% usage, 131 minutes there.
So with DeJounte Murray and Patty Mills off the court, DeMar DeRozan actually has 1.6% less usage. His fantasy production goes up a little bit because the assist rate sees an uptick. But the downgrade in usage rate. So I think this warrants DeRozan to get a little bit of an uptick, but based on these numbers, I'm not going to be upgrading him significantly.
You got to take LaMarcus Aldridge off the floor too, I think. I think that's another key cog because earlier in the year, there were some minutes there. So I'm getting a 26.2% usage when you take Aldridge off with those two. 118 minutes, good enough sample size, ball handling, 33.7% assist rate. Hi, how you doing? So I feel pretty good about DeMar DeRozan being a priority today now.
All right, so I'm taking LaMarcus Aldridge out, and let's see. I think that was a good point. That was an oversight on my part. That's why we got Eric in the co-host seat. DeMar DeRozan with LaMarcus Aldridge out also does not change his numbers very significantly still.
His assist rate big time though. It goes up about 8%. Is that what I saw? 33.7% with 118 minutes on the floor.
Wait, why is
I mean, for me, that's kind of the thing, is that it helps a lot of those other stats that we're looking at. And specifically, there's just more ball handling that has to exist for DeMar DeRozan in this spot. Let's look at who else.
So no doubt, this is an upgrade to DeMar DeRozan. But at first thought, I was like, oh my God, DeMar DeRozan, I'm just going to be getting him everywhere now.
Yeah.
He was somebody who had a minimal amount of exposure to that I'm going to get more of now because I think he could pick up a couple extra minutes. But I thought his rates, just without looking into it, I just assumed they were going to be off the page with those guys, with DeJounte Murray off the court. And it's just like a moderate increase for him. So, and the other thing also, DraftKings, he's all the way up at 8,500.
Exactly. So, that's why I was saying FanDuel. I think he's going to just jump completely off the page compared to DK, where he's 8,500.
Yeah. So FanDuel, to me, he was already in play though. And to me, he's just still in play. And then DraftKings just too expensive for me to get to him more than say like 5 to 10%.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who I think I'm going to have the most interest in actually from the Spurs on DraftKings now is going to be Derek White as the guy who gets the biggest bump for me. So Derek White this year, when Patty Mills and DeJounte Murray off the court. Number one, also, I think that Derek White benefits the most from a playing time perspective. But then also his numbers this year, he is a 25% usage rate, scores 32.07 DraftKings points per 36 minutes when those guys are off the court. So Derek White at 6,300. That's not.
He's expensive. So yeah, you're kind of looking at the same situation with both of them there. On FanDuel, I think what we're looking at is Keldon Johnson a lot more. He's sitting at 4,200 at small forward. Small forward wasn't my favorite position in the entire universe anyway. I think when you're talking about Patrick Williams, Miles Bridges, Mikal Bridges, Najee Marshall, Cameron Johnson, I mean, he's going to get much lower ownership than he would have had that news broken 35, 40 minutes ago. I mean, this is 15 minutes before lock. And I know people are going to be able to react a little bit to it, but that game starts in an hour and a half, and yeah, maybe they'll get there more meaningfully. But so many of those games lock right now here coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I think Keldon Johnson 4,200 becomes like a priority play for me on FanDuel and tournaments. Doesn't feel fantastic by any means, but I do like taking shots on some of these younger guys who can kind of jump into a new role. Has already been playing high 20s minutes. I think just is going to have a pathway to some more usage over there. And then Derek White, 5,500 over there. That's really where I kind of want to be getting to him on FanDuel because, you know, coming down, saving a little bit of money now off of Cole Anthony or Kobe, or being at like the same number as Kobe White. Derek White really is going to be 5x lower owned than he should be.
All right. So I'm rerunning my lineups right now, and I'm going to see who I end up getting from the Spurs. So I'm assuming Lonnie Walker starts now. I think the starting lineup is going to be Derek White, Lonnie Walker, DeMar DeRozan, Keldon Johnson, and Jakob Poeltl. So I gave Lonnie Walker 30 minutes, and that is going to make him a good play for me on DraftKings for sure. So that's the guy that I'm getting to the most from the Spurs, and Lonnie Walker by a pretty significant margin now. So that is the value play that I think benefits the most from here. A little bit of interest, like I said, in DeMar DeRozan, but nothing significant because his price is so up. But Lonnie Walker is a value play. Sign me up. The other thing also, this is a pretty wide spread. Lonnie Walker could be on the court in garbage time if this is a blowout also.
Lonnie Walker is a phenomenal play. I mean, 3,600 there. He's the min on FanDuel. Another guy that can kind of go into that barrel of guys to go completely stars and scrubs on this entire slate.
All right. And then I agree, at least on FanDuel, DeMar DeRozan is a pretty high priority play, although the shooting guard was already pretty thin on FanDuel. So like I said, he was already somebody to get to and just remains somebody to get to. But is there anybody else who have you rerun your lineups at all yet?
Yeah, I did. So I'm also going to let it be known that I'm getting to more Jakob Poeltl. I gave him a little bit of a tiny usage bump, and that's kind of coming through meaningfully. He was much more important, I thought, as a tournament play on this slate when you had Isaiah Stewart, or when you didn't have necessarily Isaiah Stewart, Mo Bamba. He was somebody that I've always been targeting because he can spike some of those massive upside spots. I think that he becomes very interesting as somebody who can maybe take a little bit more of this offense as well. So don't sleep on him. Just getting a little bit of tournament exposure to him at center on DK specifically, where you have to roster two.
By the way, also Furkan Korkmaz is out for the 76ers. Starting lineup is Seth Curry, George Hill, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. I'm not going to be getting to George Hill though, and Cam Johnson will start in place of Jay Crowder. So I still like Cam Johnson, and I just like him. A little confirmation bias there. Like him just the same now.
Who's playing backup point guard now without Patty Mills there? I mean, it's going to be Derek Wright. They can stagger. They can play some of him there. I mean, is there anybody that we could be looking at like super low key? I mean, this is just like my Rinpack way of thinking, where he'd play a guy like Trey Jones in this spot. It'll be so. Actually, I think the point guard minutes, I think DeMar DeRozan will actually play a lot of them. Okay. But beyond that, it'll be Trey Jones, the traditional backup point guard. But I don't think he's going to play enough to actually have fantasy significance. And the other thing also, I'm just going to bring up his rate stats for the year, but I don't believe he's been a good fantasy producer when he has gotten minutes. It's very limited, but he's playing 5 minutes per game this year and scoring 3.3 fantasy points in those 5 minutes. So that's pretty poor. Not a big enough sample size to draw too big of conclusions from. Other than that, it makes it hard for me to believe he's going to play big minutes. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to think through it completely before I moved on.
No, I think that is a reasonable thought process. So let's circle back on the Sixers for a second, because I know that you had said that potentially you would have interest in Matisse Thybulle if he was starting. That is not the case, but Korkmaz is out. George Hill's starting. Do you have any interest in George Hill as a value play today? I'm making 190 lineups on DK. I got 2% of him. I reacted to that news about 10 minutes ago, and I didn't really think it was like super noteworthy. But yeah, that Thybulle is just going to become Keldon Johnson at this point over on FanDuel. I think with George Hill, here's one of the issues is he's not the strongest points per minute fantasy producer for the season, but he also played in a really high situation that really set up for him to have high usage in OKC, where he was playing on a pretty barren roster. Now you consider the other guys he's playing with in Philadelphia with Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. It's hard for me to think that individually George Hill is going to get a ton of usage. Like if he pops up in a few lineups here and there, I don't have an issue with it, but not an outright priority target for me, especially not when we have this much value that's popping up with Cam Johnson starting, and now Lonnie Walker being a potential value play, because that's really what I think he's getting compared to, at least on DraftKings. Is probably going to be Lonnie Walker versus George Hill, and it's Lonnie Walker in a landslide for me.
How much Lonnie Walker are you getting to on FanDuel?
I only have lineups on DraftKings today.
Because I just ran a crunch and I got 95%, and I'm freaking out a little bit because it's like 5 minutes before lock. And I do not want 95% of Lonnie Walker, but I want a lot of him.
I had run lineups before we started for FanDuel, just so it's like, hey, with my projections, these are the guys I would be getting to. But then as the slate actually starts, it's like I can't update on both slates at the same time while I'm hosting the show. So just one for me on DraftKings. But Lonnie Walker is now my most rostered player.
Yep, mine too. And I feel good about it. He's at the min. Like I have so much more Giannis now too. I mean, honestly, this is kind of beautiful. If he gets anywhere close to those 30 minutes, I feel really, really good about this play, regardless of how he shoots the ball.
All right. So just 5 minutes until lock. But guys, don't go anywhere. Eric and I will be sticking around for 30 minutes to talk about the jock market. But as I'm updating, well, I've already updated my line, so I'm uploading them right now. Is there anybody that you're getting to that you did not think you were going to be getting to just a few minutes ago, other than for the Spurs news, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, the Spurs thing, I mean, Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, I didn't even have consideration for, 15 minutes ago? I think this just speaks to how much NBA changes in the moments leading up to lock. And we haven't had like a late piece of news in the last 10 minutes, I feel like, in a while. Like, I feel like we've been getting pretty early times, like it's been a half hour beforehand to really get news. Like yesterday we got the Embiid, we got a lot of that Sixers news earlier. There was nothing like apocalyptic about the way the Clippers did anything, because we got that news plenty of time early. It was like immediately after I got off the tip-off show, it was like just everything Paul George. But I think I have to just say, you should be getting to so much more Luka Doncic and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Jason Tatum as a result of this news. Because it should just stars and scrubs it up even further than it already was. And I'm not saying that they can fail in this spot, but because you have value now and you have a guy in Lonnie Walker who's like near the minimum, he is the minimum on FanDuel, mid 3K price tag, that saves you even a little bit more money. And so I'm going to go up for the ceilings of those guys and really kind of extend their projections and get to more of them. I think that's really kind of the big thing to take away from this news.
All right. We just got a couple super chats in, so I want to answer these really quickly because we're heading to lock. FanDuel GPP. This is Cam and DeMar or Bacon and Ingram. That is Cam and DeMar for me.
Correct.
Let's see. Next super chat here from Robert Warren. Josh Jackson for GPP. Think he plays 30 minutes. Also 17K last night. Appreciate the help, fellas. Thank you. First of all, congratulations to you, Robert Warren. Love to see that. I like Josh Jackson a lot for GPP. Actually, the Spurs news did bring his exposure down for me a little bit, but still somebody that I like a lot, and I'm getting to a little bit overweight to the field. So Josh Jackson still in play for me, but was somebody who got impacted by the Spurs news just because I'm getting to so much of Lonnie Walker now as a shooting guard. But are you still on Josh Jackson in a pretty big way?
Yeah, it's still there. I think out of anybody on that team, he's the one guy I think Killian Hayes is a great price point and has been coming into more usage here. But Josh Jackson's the guy who's going to go out there and chuck 5,500. There's so much upside there. I'm right now at about the field, and I think I'm happy with that. I'm just going way, way over on some of these Spurs pieces.
All right. And let's get just about a minute until lock. So which player is most likely to end your night? Who, in a good way?
Lonnie Walker. Like, I have 98% of him on DraftKings.
So one more super chat we got in that I want to answer really quick because we're almost at lock. Tyler Cook or Cam Johnson on DK. That is Cam Johnson.
Cam Johnson.
So yes, thank you for the super chat there, Mr. Sunflower. But that is just about going to bring us to lock by the time that you guys hear me saying this. You're going to hear, or your lineups will be just about locked. But I'm going to answer for me. I feel pretty confident in Lonnie Walker, though. Like, I don't think he could actually kill me, especially because he's so cheap. I think Mo Bamba is the one who's more likely to kill me today, just because I have so much of him. And I think the bust factor here, right? Like, if Mo Bamba just gets into foul trouble in the second quarter, I saw this come up really quick on the YouTube chat, and I know that they were joking, but they're like, what happens if Mo Bamba fouls out in the second quarter? Well, he's going to have a bad fantasy game if he fouls out in the second quarter, and then that'll suck for my lineups. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely somebody who's a risk to get into foul trouble, but he's such a good points from a fantasy producer that I wasn't able to stay away from him. But Mo Bamba is definitely somebody who I'd consider to be a good chalk for the slate.
Oh, baby. That was the fun one, actually, because I feel like I've been kind of living pretty well on the last couple live before locks that I've done where there hasn't been anything crazy really going down. That was a good one. I maybe shouldn't have been playing on two sites. I thought it was going to be pretty benign, but joke's on me. Usually is.
It is. That is a staple of our YouTube channel for sure. Although Jordan kind of took the brunt of it this show. I feel like we piled on him a little bit, and definitely I think the YouTube chat got in on that.
Doesn't matter. Had sex.
Yeah. Let's see. Any other thing else here? No, I mean, we're at lock now. So guys, it is time for the Jock Market portion of the show. Now, the Jock Market, the IPO, Eric, I don't know if you saw this, but it does not actually lock until 8:30. So we're going to have a different way to talk about this. We'll be able to talk about the games a little bit as they go on. We'll be able to start placing bids, but Also, guys, if you want to go sign up and make your first deposit on the Jock Market, use the promo code Awesemo20. That'll get you a $20 bonus on your first deposit at the Jock Market. Also, go to your App Store, Google Play Store, whatever phone you use, download Jock Market app, and that is how you'll be able to follow along with some of the stuff that Eric and I are going to be talking about. So without further ado, let's open up the Jock Market app. Let's place some bids. Let's try to win some IPOs. Whoa.
That was a little aggressive.
Was that louder than usual, or just the volume turned up higher in my microphone? That blew out my ears.
Yeah, well, you don't need hearing anyway. It's not like you listen to me anyway.
Was it just me, or was it also very loud for you?
Oh no, I'm bleeding, but it's
okay.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, so let me pull up the projections we have. And by the way, guys, so Jock Market, it works a little bit differently from regular DFS, where we're bidding on players as if they're stocks, and there's now the IPO period we're about to enter. We try to bid on shares of players, and if you don't know what is a fair amount to bid on players, don't worry, we have you covered, because on Awesemo.com, we do have Jock Market IPO projections where we have fair prices for all the players on the Jock Market. So I'm opening that up right now on the Awesemo.com site. And by the way, those are free, so anybody can go check those out. Do you have them open, Eric, or not yet? Because if not, I was going to ask you a question.
Oh, the projections? Oh, yeah, no, I'm just pulling them up here this second. I clicked on that. There we are. Hello. Yes, I'm ready to rock.
All right, so opening it up, the app now, and let's try to find some players to bid on. So which player do you think is projected to have the highest fair IPO price? It's actually a pretty easy question.
I mean, it's got to be Luka at this point in time, because he'll get a little bit more run than Giannis, and he's going to project out a little better. So I think as I get to it, Luka Doncic, hey, look at me. I got one thing right.
And Giannis isn't on the slate because it's just.
Oh, that's right. That's right. First time caller, first time listener. Yeah.
Yeah. Long time caller, first time listener.
There it is. Found it.
Let's see. So the top 5 players, at least on the Jock Market app, that they've projected for the highest fair IPO price: Luka Doncic 1, Nikola Vucevic 2, Kristaps Porzingis 3, DeMar DeRozan 4, Terry Rozier 5. So the first thing I'm going to do now is we just had this. I was going to look up Lonnie Walker, not in the player pool tonight. I was going to say that's somebody I'd have interest in, because that's a value player already on. But he is not in the Jock Market pool. But let's look at some of the other Spurs players then. How about Derek White? By the way, the bidding, nobody's bid on anybody yet, so all the players are just at a $1 price.
$1 on Derek White. Here we go.
Don't go spend it all in one place.
I know. I'm going to get 10 shares here right off the bat, bet on it, and let's go. Let's get the party started.
By the way, we also got recent news that's kind of relevant overall to my futures bets that might be of interest to people. Is Trae Young, a grade 2 ankle sprain, no timetable yet, but he's going to return once swelling and discomfort go down. So Trae Young's going to be out for a while. That is not good news for the Atlanta Hawks.
That's really bad for them. I would think so. Also, yesterday, I was watching that game. He put up like 44 or 45 fantasy points in the first half. Comes out. I thought he was going to go for like an 80-90 burger against the Knicks at like 1%. I had 0. So that would have been very, very hurtful. But obviously a bummer to see that happen. That's a big blow for them. But it is absolutely Bogdanovich season, as if it wasn't already.
By the way, a bet that I placed earlier that I think people should be interested in. The Atlanta Hawks are still favored to win that division, and the Hawks and the Heat play each other tomorrow. If the Heat win the game, the Heat move into the lead in the division because they would have the same record. However, the Heat would hold the tiebreaker then over the Hawks. So I think right now with the Heat as underdogs, if they're to win tomorrow, you could bet on them to win the division. As long as they win tomorrow, you'd be able to cash that out for a profit on Saturday. I assume they're going to be fairly heavily favored. Also, Clint Capella's questionable to play tomorrow. The Heat should be favored to win that division right now, not the Hawks. That is a misprice. So there we go.
You are so good at that stuff. You're so good at that stuff. Honestly,
oh, thanks, Eric.
You've made me a bunch of money doing that and just reacting to stuff faster, because I got a guy and I can make things happen quickly. It takes a text message. It's not like this is not 1999 where you have to call 3 people to get a bet in. It's not that difficult. So we can quickly make and maneuver our way around. But the good old cash out button, what a lovely feature to have. And I know some people are like, oh, this shouldn't exist, or this is ridiculous. You're hedging out your bets. No, you're profiting. You're making money. And that's the goal.
Yeah, and the other thing too is as long as the cash out options exist, I tweet about these all the time. There's ones that like you don't even need the players to win, but like for futures bets, you could look at it sometimes and be like, oh, this guy is listed at 20-1. I think he should be 8-1. And I'm predicting line movement. So you could just say like, hey, go bet on this. I think it's going to be this line a week. And you could cash it out for, like a 2x profit or whatever. And you don't really take any real risk. You're just kind of like the jock market, right? You're just playing it as a market and you're saying like, hey, I think this stock is too low, too high. And that's the way that I like to attack a lot of those bets. But talking about the jock market, let's see if anybody's bid on any players yet. The only player
I see Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, I was about to say the only player who's been bid on so far is Isaiah Stewart. So Isaiah Stewart, who has had, let me bring up what his jock market game logs have been as a starter this year. By the way, Dario Saric officially active, as was expected from a few minutes ago. Isaiah Stewart as a starter on the jock market, and the scoring is a little bit different on jock market because there's negative points for missed shots, which doesn't really matter all that much for a big man like Isaiah Stewart, who's pretty efficient. But in 6 starts this year for the Pistons, Isaiah Stewart is averaging 34.96 jock market fantasy points. So he is right now projected for, 32.61 on the jock market. Obviously the 251 price tag is much too low if that's actually what it holds to. Through Lock. Right now, we have him projected as a fair IPO price of $3.70. I would personally be willing to go a little bit above that, but here I'll bid on Isaiah Stewart. I'll bid against the only player who's being bid on the entire thing right now. Probably suboptimal, right?
That's less sharp by you.
Yeah. I was gonna say probably suboptimal when you could just go get any of the other guys who are being bid on for nothing. But for me, I'm like, no. This is a point of pride, and I want to bid against the only other guy who's in here getting bid on. All right,
just a galaxy brain play. Isaiah Stewart, 58 incoming. That's what it is. You just know that he's going to do it. It's like the people who refuse to accept late swap as a part of process where it's like, oh, well, I don't want to change my lineup from this morning because that could be the one that wins. No, don't do that.
Well, I instantly got outbid on Isaiah Stewart anyway. So let me go to Luka, because I could get Luka for less than Isaiah Stewart right now anyway, right? So
yeah, I'm going to say that that's the smart way. That's the smart approach here. So I like Luka there. What do you think about getting to? So we're basically on that top end. Vooch and Doncic kind of going 1-2. Having Zion up top there, Embiid.
You're listing off some guys that already started though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I'm trying to just like not read them out loud here now. I'm just like skipping through who in my brain.
I like how you're reading it. It's like when you first teach a 4-year-old how to read and they're just walking around the house with the book open. They're just reading all the words out loud.
There once was a Luka Doncic who liked to score lots of. There's nothing that rhymes with Doncic. I can't. There's not one. I don't have a single one. But yeah, Nikola Vucevic 8-1. I'm gonna get some Vooch. I'm gonna see how high that goes because. Not a ton of him in DFS on 10K on DraftKings, and now Mo Bamba over on FanDuel at 5K got to a ton of as well, even though he was 8,800. But I think Vooch definitely a prime candidate for the jock market today.
All right. And by the way, we do have Wayne Malcolm in the YouTube chat just asked, what is the jock market promo code? Awesemo20. So you go download the app and use the promo code Awesemo20, and you'll get a $20 bonus on your first deposit. So that is it. And by the way, it's a jock market spelled MKT in the App Store if you have trouble finding it. So that is how you go about finding. Although jock market, I assume there aren't that many things that are. Well, I shouldn't say that many things that jock market because who knows what you might find. But yeah, so jock market MKT as the is what it was listed as, at least in the App Store for me. But let's see. So I was winning a bid on Luka Doncic very briefly. I was outbid, not to be all that surprising because I didn't actually think I was getting Luka for $2 a share. But here we go. I'm going right back at it.
Somebody just slammed it up to $10 already
for Luka.
Just came through. That was aggressive, very aggressive. I splash the pot whenever I please.
I have a very embarrassing Rounder story. I recreated that movie with friends.
This is the time. You recreated the whole thing?
No. It was just I can't even tell part of the story though. But anyway, yeah, I did when I was in high school as a project. Me and a couple of friends, and we recreated Rounders.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
we
it's
did an
not-
AP Bio movie of Cell Wars as if it was Star Wars, and just like renamed all the characters to like I don't know, mitochondria something, like mitochondria fet or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was something of the nature of it. It was a strange time. There was nothing to do in South Dakota is basically what it comes down to. But yours is definitely Rounders, much more interesting, especially nowadays. That movie holds up so well. Like it's ridiculous how much I love that movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but yeah, I mean, that's so I have two. This is really random. My two favorite projects of John Malkovich are Rounders and when he does the promos for UFC pay-per-view cards.
He does that? I didn't even know that.
Oh, he's so good at it. Yeah,
I get the pay-per-views. I've never noticed.
Yeah, he does the intros to them, and he does it. He does a really good. He crushes those. He makes them like really dramatic and everything. Which, by the way, is a little bit of UFC tie-in. We do have a UFC promo. If you use the promo code UFC 261, you could get 30 days of Awesemo Plus for MMA for just $14.95. So that's 30 days. And what's nice about a monthly pass for MMA is that, usually we've done promo codes where it's just a weekly pass. But kind of the issue with that is, unlike other sports, MMA only runs once a week. So you're really only getting it for one card. But with the monthly pass, you get 4 different MMA slates over the next month. So that is promo code UFC 261. That is going to run through April 24th for the Usman Masvidal card. And that is UFC 261, the numerals 261 and no spaces there. So check that out for an MMA pass. And then also we have the MMA strategy show coming up after us. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and you will know when that is starting. So, all right, the jock market right now. By the way, I brought up the John Malkovich thing just to transition to that, by the way.
It was so good. No, honestly, it was so smooth. And I was about to just, yeah, again, your promo game is strong, sir. I was going to say tomorrow I'm hosting and you're analyzing. So that should be a fun little swap, I think.
Oh, do you want to do it?
Did you look ahead at that?
No. I don't look ahead more than like 5 minutes. I live in the moment. Mr. Lindquist. I don't know what happened 5 minutes before me. I don't know, 5 minutes ahead of me. I only live in the moment. But no, I was not aware of that. I mean, if you want to do that, if you want to be the captain, and I'll just be I'll be second seat. Do you want to be? You're the captain now. All right, we'll do it.
Yeah, in the same way that Terence Ross is, like, just not at all the captain.
That was very funny when they first traded everybody, and he just tweeted, "I am the captain now," and then he just didn't play the rest of the season.
Yeah, he didn't even attempt double-digit shot attempts in like 3 of his last 4 or something. It's like pretty not great.
I mean, he's out. By the way, have any of the games started yet? Let's see.
What up here?
Terence Ross is out tonight, but it's not like he's had. I thought he was gonna have some massive fantasy games when all those guys were rolled out. Not the case. Mr. Terence Ross, who's either sat out or just played and kind of half-assed it when he's been out there. So his fantasy point totals the last 4 games he was active for: 13 fantasy points, 25, 10, 14, and his usage rate way low. He is just doing cardio, jogging up and down the court. He does not give a care about the rest of the season, and for good reason. So we do have the Celtics Suns game has started. The Celtics are up 4-4 now. The Suns, big comeback. They were down 4-2 and they scored a bucket to even up the score. The Orlando Magic,
Pelicans, yeah,
they are up 5-4.
Oh, great. Mo Bamba foul as soon as I log in. That's nice.
Maybe he will foul out in the second quarter. But Cole Anthony, 2 points and assists in the first couple minutes of the game. Gary Harris has hit a 3. Nice one, Gary. So there we go. Those are all the updates on the games that are going on. Let's see if we have any updates on the bids on the jock market. Are you winning any bids on players?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of them going right now. I was going full on just like bid on him. PJ Washington, I'm going to bid on here at the moment too. What is going to be his number? I kind of like the fact that he's been coming off the bench here because kind of doesn't get the attention that he should, playing 34 and 35 minutes, averaging 35 plus his last 2 games out. Completely stumped my hopes and dreams from 2 nights ago. Because he ended up not in the starting lineup, and I went from having 90-something% of him to having like 5, and it was just carnage. It was heartbreaking. But now I think I'm just making sure that I manually get a little bit more of him than the field, no matter what. And I guess we haven't necessarily brought him up at this point in time, but Somebody that I do like having coming off the bench. I believe he's my 4th highest power forward over on DraftKings tonight.
Did you also play Vernon Carey Jr. any of those recent slates?
Did not. No, I didn't. I didn't play Vernon Carey. Actually, the last slate, 2 slates ago. Yes, the nice little 5-minute burger or whatever it was, 2 minutes, got 2 fouls, and then never saw the light of day again. That was not fun.
Listen to the last 2 games for Vernon Carey Jr. By the way, he started both of them. So 2 games ago, he starts. He just got in really quick foul trouble. He picked up, I think he had 4 fouls either by the end of the first or early second quarter and just didn't really play the rest of the game. So yeah, 2 games ago, Vernon Carey ends up playing 7 minutes, has a steal, a rebound, 2 turnovers. That's his entire stat line. He started last game against the Knicks and played 3 minutes with no set. Why even start somebody here? You're going to play 3 minutes.
Because they hate us and they don't want us to be happy. That's all it really comes down to, is like, because, and then them saying that they wanted to give him a look or something after the fact. That's just pure nonsense and ridiculousness. He played that 1 game for crazy minutes. Cody Zeller and Bismack Biyombo ain't it for him. So they gave him the look. He played fantastic. And then it's like, oh, 2 quick hooks. You must be disciplined. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the purpose is there, but there was a point in time where Vernon Carey was in the mix to be a top overall pick in the NBA draft. He was really highly recruited when he went to Duke, and then just never really materialized until he popped up in the Hornets starting lineup and ruined DFS lineups. Before then, he was unheard of for a little while.
I did not know who he was. All of a sudden, was in that starting lineup. I got to a little bit that day that he went completely bonkers, but. Had a lot. I had like 20, I think it was like 20-ish% that one where he played 5 minutes, and then the next one just had 0, which was good, but didn't fall for the PJ Washington trap, or opposite of trap. I just played a bunch of PJ Washington last time out. Will again today.
Yeah, I think so. To me, the Vernon Carey slate where he was popular, I was not on him that slate, but what hurt my lineups is that I was on PJ Washington and then really nerfed his projection when he came out of starting lineup, which, by the way, even in hindsight, it didn't work out at all. But it should have. Just like there was no way to know that Vernon Carey was going to pick up 4 fouls in 3 minutes.
And PJ Washington hadn't played for 3 games. That was the big issue for me, was like I couldn't project. There's no way I could project PJ Washington for 34, 35 minutes after not playing for three consecutive games. Coming off the bench.
I've been outbid on all my fellas on the jock market. So that's fine.
I still have all 3. I got Vooch, PJ Washington, and Derek White, your guy. So I'm ready to rock. I got 10 shares of each here right now. I'm sure I'm gonna have to bid multiple times over to as it leads up a little bit closer. But what's nice is we're gonna be able to partake a little bit here before the 8:30 p.m. Eastern time jock market lock time. Oh, as I say that, I've been outbid for both of them. That's great. I now have Vooch alone.
I am winning bids on Porzingis right now. So that is that is what I am partaking in at the moment. By the way, basically everybody right now, other than Isaiah Stewart, is going for. So here are the guys with significant bids right now. Luka Doncic, his IPO price is mid up to $13.08. DeMar DeRozan, $2.72. Isaiah Stewart, $5. Basically nobody else has bids yet. So if you want to hop on the jock market, this is like the equivalent of overlay. Not that it's probably going to exist in an hour from now when it locks, but as of now, at least, hey, everybody's available for almost free on the jock market. All right, let's go to the leaderboard here. Who's scoring some fantasy points in the games that are ongoing? By the way, Mo Bamba has 2 rebounds and no other stats. Oh, nope, he just blocked a shot. So Mo Bamba, 2 rebounds and a block. He has avoided picking up his second foul. Cole Anthony, 4 points and a couple assists. That's a good start for him. Nice. Brandon Ingram has 7 points on the Pelican side of the game. Oh, the Milwaukee Bucks, 10-0 up on the Sixers. A minute and a half into the game, the Bucks holding a 10-point lead, which, boy, that could really fudge up the slate, because if the Bucks just totally smash the 76ers, that is probably going to mean a bad game for both Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't want that to happen. That would be suboptimal for me. So let's get the 76ers back in this game. I don't want to overreact, but 10-0 with 10:24 left in the first quarter.
And all 10 points by freaking Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, because why wouldn't that be the case? What a time to be alive. Oh, it's so tilting.
Let's do some quick math. What are they on pace to win by? They are on
minute and 30 seconds. Make it a minute 30.
They're on pace to win about 300-0.
That's right.
Damn. That would be a one-sided game. On TNT also.
I bet that might make Sports Center.
By the way, how crazy was that Embiid shot yesterday?
It was the most insane thing. I mean, obviously it was reminiscent for me of the Duke Butler finals with Gordon Hayward, the NCAA championship coming around. But this was way more difficult. This was in rhythm, having the wherewithal. Obviously, you have to chuck it, but like he didn't set, like it was a catch and chuck. There was no like ability to load up and go. He just, it was one of the more ridiculous shot attempt misses of all time. Like if it had gone in, it probably would have been I'm scared of hyperbole because I know I said this about the Miles Bridges dunk. It just got dunked on. But I think it probably would have been one of the greatest buzzer beaters of all time.
Easily. And then, what would have been really funny is they went out and then lost in overtime after that. Like they just get flattened in overtime and be like, oh, well, now we have to play tomorrow. And we just had to play everybody a bunch of extra minutes.
By the way, who is Jordan talking to behind the glass? What is he doing over there? He's not giving us the attention that we deserve, I believe.
Yeah, what is he doing?
Wanted.
Yeah, and also, why is his camera set up so we can only see the top of his head like he's an alligator?
Let me see the neck. Let me see the neck.
No, he's done that. He did that on purpose, didn't he? Yeah, we can only see the top of his head right now.
Okay, never mind. Continue doing what you're doing. It's fine. We're just doing a show.
Yeah.
Just for our friends here at Jock Market. It's fine. Don't distract me.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing under the desk there. We can't see the top of his head. But whatever. It is what it is, Jordan. And enjoy your time. Just 8 minutes left until Eric and I go off the air. Hopefully we end up winning some of our bids on the Jock Market. But guys, if you have not done so already, go to the App Store, download Jock Market app, use the promo code Awesemo20, get a $20 bonus on the first deposit you make on the Jock Market. And then you could bid against Eric and I and try to win some players in the IPO period here. So I am still holding shares of Kristaps Porzingis. Because I know the price hasn't moved. I assume you still have your shares of Nikola Vucevic. Is there anybody else that you have won bids on in the last few minutes?
Yeah, I just went after Josh Jackson too. I mean, he was just at $1. I fired that up. I'm just kind of like looking at what some of these numbers are going to turn into. Josh Jackson, it's saying suggested price listed at $764. I'm actually going to bid on a little bit more, just at $2 and kind of monitor that as we go. But obviously getting closer to that 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, Jock time, lock time. How many times can I say time in a sentence? That was enough. I think that's somebody to really be paying attention to as well. He has the upside to be a guy who finishes top 3, top 4 if it goes right. And, the fall off from 11th to 20th is not nearly as severe as the positive gains you can make by going from 11th to a third place. So keep that in mind as well with the payout structure. Taking some shots on those mid-range guys who have some upside, like Kobe White, I think is a little bit capped, like in terms of what he can do. Like 15. Okay, I could probably get to a little bit there. And again, you got to be willing to take some shots here and hope that some of these guys bust up top. Because like Luka Doncic, it's going to be so hard for him and Vooch to not end up 1-2 on this slate in some capacity. So if you're going to be targeting somebody like DeMar DeRozan who can surpass it, he's already been bid up to 751, which is a large number. But anybody else that you're kind of going to, I don't know. Sadiq Bey, I guess, could probably go into that same bucket as Josh Jackson, where if he gets hot from 3, there you go.
So I just have my bids right now on Kristaps Porzingis. So I mean, I'm just logically, right? If we're just looking at it as is, it's pretty hard to not just bid on the guys who are towards the top of the projections that don't have bids on them yet. So, I mean, if you're looking at this right now, if you just downloaded it, I'd be looking to get in, and I hate to say it because you'd be bidding against Eric and I, but the two most obvious ones right now are Vucevic and Porzingis to bid on, where nobody other than Eric and I have bid on them. Terry Rozier is at $1.11 is what his winning bid is at right now. So he's a guy that would make sense to bid on. Isaiah Stewart's already gone up to 551. That's probably more than, or probably close to what I'd be willing to pay for him anyway. But then getting to Miles Bridges at 111, those are the guys who realistically I'd really want to be looking at right now.
Right.
By the way, if anybody has questions, throw them into the YouTube chat. If anybody has questions, at me in the premium Slack channel, I'll answer those as well. Let's see. So we've got what's going on in this Celtics Suns game. But pretty crazy stat line. 6 minutes into the game, Jason Tatum, 2 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. A lot of stuff going on there. Pretty well-rounded.
Fantastic.
Kemba Walker, 11 points and an assist. on the Sun side of the game, not a great start for our guy Cam Johnson. He is a rebound and a steal. He also checked out at the first TV timeout, so it's. I know a lot of people are going to be wondering why Cam Johnson's isn't scoring a bunch of fantasy points in the next few minutes. It's because he's on the bench, and I assume he'll check back in probably like the 8-minute mark of the second quarter or something like that. So
Yep.
I wouldn't sweat Cam Johnson's fantasy points when he's on the bench. But once again, something I'd said a little bit earlier that could be an issue. The Suns, basing this, by the way, only at looking at the NBA app box score, but the fact that they're down 21-11 with 4 minutes left in the first quarter, I would assume fatigue, fairly significant issue for the Suns at this point of the road trip. And see, Booker hasn't checked out yet. He's played the first 8 minutes of the game. Chris Paul did check out at his normal time, but I would not be surprised if this ultimately means limited minutes for Booker and Chris Paul. By the way, Mo Bamba has been stat corrected. He lost his block, but he does have 3 points and 4 rebounds. So
yeah, 5 points and 4 rebounds. I think he had a bucket before he left. Yep, before he left out there. Something named Devin Kennedy is knocking down shots for the Magic right now. Princeton's finest, if I do recall, from his college days. But yeah, that's not a name that I had any idea. No, I knew he went to Princeton. I have a weird thing where I can remember like really good basketball players from like small schools. Like for me, like CJ McCollum, Lehigh, like stuff like that just always sits in my brain.
Yeah, I just know like Rudy. I just know Kermit Washington because he punched Rudy Tomjanovich in the face and put him into a coma. Because so my dad went to American University, and so whenever like American University's on TV, it was like Kermit Washington went there. It's like the guy who punched Rudy Tomjanovich so hard during a. This was like kind of like a Malice in the Palace type situation where just people were storming the court and there was like punches thrown and stuff. But yeah. Kermit Washington landed a clean right on Rudy Tomjanovich and put him into a coma, and he was in the hospital for a little while. But anyway, yeah, pride of American University. The two most notable alumni is my dad, who is good at watching TV, and that's kind of most of what he does. And
there you go. Way to encourage him there. There it was.
So anyway, those are the small school guys.
I love these fireside chats with Greg. We just need to get some s'mores going, and we just hear about the Rounders days, and we hear about, these are good times.
All right, let's see. Final look. We only have a couple more minutes until we're finished here. I've been outbid on Porzingis. I see the price has gone way up on Vucevic. Are you still holding the lead on Vuce, or is it somebody who's outbid you?
Yeah, somebody just outbid me by, I don't know, $6 up to $8.52. So there's that. Somebody just kind of highballed it, and I don't blame them whatsoever because, again, you're looking at a guy like Porzingis at $5.51. He's really the only other piece. Like DeMar DeRozan now is in a situation where he could go for a big upside, but Luka and Vooch are going to project out so well on Jock Market today that it's hard to imagine that them not going 1-2 isn't something you want to be invested in. And considering Luka's up to 15, Vooch at 8.52 feels like a steal.
So I am still in the lead for Porzingis just because I upped my bid. So I'm currently winning 6 shares of Kristaps Porzingis. I'm pretty excited about that. You know, nothing crazy, but let's see. Let me scroll down. Andre Drummond is still yet to be bid on.
Shh. Why do you do stuff like that? He's got the GTD next to it. Shh. Yeah. Don't tell the people.
By the way, I always think that's funny, like when people post that on Twitter, where it's like, "Hey, I kind of like this guy's a value play," and just people respond like, "Shh, don't say that." It's like, how influential do you think I am? Like, I know it. Like, I don't have in the grand scheme of things. Like, I have like 7,600 followers on Twitter. That is such a small percentage of the universe. Like, it is. Trust me, it's not making a splash.
I'm being sarcastic. I mean, somebody bid him up to $1.02 now. Look at that.
By the way, everybody in the YouTube chat saying Embiid is going to bust, which, by the way, yeah, if the Sixers are going to get flattened in this game by the Bucks, then yeah, Giannis is going to have a bad game. Embiid's going to have a bad game. The other thing also that's massively concerning that I mentioned before, Embiid says he's hurt right now, but he wants to play through it. And if this isn't going to be a competitive game, then yeah, the starters could end up coming out early there for sure. All right, that is going to take us to the Jock Market lock. But guys, there's still more content coming up on the YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel. On the way out, we do have the MMA strategy show with our guys Jason Floyd and Pete the Heat Rogers coming up later. By the way, Pete, I don't know if people know about Pete's fighting background. He is the record featherweight history, fastest submission and fastest knockout in Bellator history. So I'm just saying, if you don't show up, you're gonna have to mess with Pete, and you don't want to do that. So stick around, watch the show. Have a good night, guys.